Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their Tough Core click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Authentic, original player artwork available for Hawkeye fans across the country. Now, in addition to the classic sign prints of Hawkeye greats like Chuck Long, Tory Taylor, and Cooper DeJean, more authentic prints are coming, including current Iowa football stars Cade McNamara, Luke Lachey, and Xavier Wampa. There are so many options available. They make great gifts. Plus, your purchase benefits the athletes themselves and your favorite Hawkeye program from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook, visit the stand each year at FryFest, or check out their website, underthekitchen.square.site. Again, that's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. We want to welcome Hawkeye Nation to our show. I'm Cory Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and I'm joined by none other than Coach Don Patterson on a beautiful Monday evening. Don, it was, I don't want to say unseasonably warm, but kind of unseasonably warm today. The sun came out, at least here in Ames. I don't know about you in the Iowa City area, but it was a nice change to our typical overcast and windy Iowa days.
I would say, Cory, the month of December's overall been pretty kind to us. Could have been a lot worse.
Absolutely. I just made the comment earlier today. It feels like December has moved by fast, and part of that is you stay busy, Don. You're busy this time of year as we get set for the bowl game, and I've been able to do the same. And yeah, there's no snow on the ground, so I, for one, am happy about that. Usually January and February tend to drag on, but I'll tell you what will not be dragging on, Don, is the search for a quarterback, because Iowa's window to do that, I think it's going to be closing here pretty soon. I do think that search is going to be put in hyperspeed. We're going to talk about the transfer portal here in a few minutes, but as the title of this show indicates, we're here to talk bowl game. Of course, Iowa will take on the Missouri Tigers on Monday, a week from today, in less than a week now, because that'll be a 1:30 p.m. Central Time kick on ESPN. And, Coach, you've got some analytics you want to share with us and kind of some things to watch for in that game. Before we get to the nitty-gritty of that, let's talk about personnel, because a lot has happened since you and I got together for the Iowa-Nebraska post game about a month ago now. And there have been a number of players that have opted out. A record number of players have hit the transfer portal. That was to be expected with the new roster limits, which will take effect this coming year. So let's start with personnel, Don. Any surprises? We'll run through some people, some notables that have left the program and that are not playing in the bowl game. But any surprises as far as people who have transferred out, or I guess one specifically that has declared for the NFL draft?
I'm not sure that there's really much to talk about there, Cory. Back in time, of course, we are aware that Caleb has opted out. Our star running back is going to pass on the game. We've discussed that already. No reason to discuss anymore. We do wish Caleb nothing but the best. He's given us a great year. 1,537 yards on 240 carries. Jamari Harris is also opted out. He, without a doubt, is our best cover corner. So now, maybe they'll be a little bit conflicted about which corner to go after. It was always easy to know to throw away from Jamari. And now Deshaun and TJ, I believe will be starting. And I'm sure they've had a good preparation. I'm sure they're excited about being able to go forward with great play out of our corner position. Missouri, at the same time that we've lost a couple of outstanding players, they've also lost a couple. Luther Burden is projected by almost everyone to be a first-round pick. Here's the scary thing about him, Cory, about the receiving core. He had 61 receptions for 676 yards. He was first team All SEC. And amazingly enough, he wasn't even their leading receiver. Another guy that is playing against us is the leading receiver. And his name is Theo Weiss. Theo had 55 catches for 809 yards, more yardage than Burden. Now, my guess is he had more single coverage than Burden did. People were concentrating on Burden to the extent that Theo actually passed him up in terms of receiving yardage. So he's still an outstanding receiver, but at least they don't have two of them. They have only one. And then beyond that, in the offensive line, their best blocker, their right tackle, who was second team all conference, his name is Armand Mimbo, and he has opted out also. So we each have two quality starters, two of our very best players on both teams that are missing the game. Beyond that, I have uncovered here lately, Brett Norfleet is a tight end for them. I believe, as I recall, he was their fourth leading receiver. He is going to miss the game because of a shoulder injury. For the year, he played in 11 games, 26 catches for 235 yards. So I think that's a fairly significant loss at tight end. And then beyond that, our starting center had a season-ending knee injury against Oklahoma. The backup center has played over the last fourth of the season, and obviously he's not projected to play as well as the starter. The starter was named Connor Tollison. And here's one that's a little bit of a head scratcher. A linebacker, starting linebacker and team captain, Chuck Hicks, has opted out of the game. And the part that's a little confusing, he didn't say because I'm getting ready for the draft. Over 12 games, he only had 34 total tackles. That's an unusually low number of tackles. And his reason for opting out was officially listed as be able to spend more time with his family. That's a little odd. I don't know what that means.
Well,
never heard that one. But in any case, maybe he's simply been beaten out. But he was a team captain, so he was certainly in a leadership position. Incidentally, the projected starter at right tackle was the number 2 left tackle, who was clearly beaten out by number 1. So what it amounts to, they've lost their very best tackle, and the tackles we're going to see in the starting lineup are the second and third best tackles. And in theory, the third best tackle off that original preseason look would be the starter on the right side. Their best offensive tackle, in theory, is the one on the left side who beat out the guy that's now starting on the right side. The right side starter, incidentally, is Javen Richardson. So the bottom line, Cory, I think it's safe to say they have a few more losses than we do from the regular season. And maybe that's a good sign for us. One comment I have made, which I do believe, one thing that's hard to measure, can we measure motivation for a bowl game? I think that's very difficult to do. That's one reason you see some crazy scores in bowl games sometimes. One team seems to be locked in, ready to play. The other team, not nearly so much. I feel confident in saying this. I think our motivation from a team-wide standpoint is going to be hard to top, simply because we've got a lot of great seniors that are playing their last game for the University of Iowa. I think that means the world to our players. I'd like to believe it's going to make a difference in the game itself.
I want to answer the question here in the chat right off the bat, and then we'll get to our super chat with Jack. First of all, David says, "Are you drinking some whiskey?" Yeah, a little whiskey in the bottom of the glass. Don, are you a bourbon guy?
I'm a Coke guy.
I know you don't drink whiskey since your cancer, right? We've talked about that. But did you like whiskey back in the day?
Not really. Not really. Yeah, I think alcohol is an acquired taste, and I don't think I ever really acquired it. Socially, I would have a drink through the years, but not since the throat cancer. I've had no alcohol at all.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'm not a wine guy. Not really a beer guy. I like a good bourbon. and sip on a good bourbon in the evening after a long day is kind of my thing. So, David, thank you for noticing that. First of all, Jack, super chat. Let's get to this first from Jack. Coach, what are the keys to winning this week versus Missouri? Well, we're hopping right into it, but Jack deserves it because he threw up the super chat. So appreciate the support, Jack, with that. And folks, if you do want your comment addressed in priority, be sure to throw in a super chat, and we'll get that over to Coach Patterson. Of course, you can also do so by means of Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Those links are in the description. Don, anything stood out specifically? I know you've ran the analytics on this game, and these are two programs. I know when I looked at Missouri and their resume, I look at a team who has sort of struggled away from home. Now, I don't want to say that that's going to translate to a trip to Nashville. It's not a true road game, of course, but they got throttled at A&M earlier this season. They also got throttled at Alabama. Now, don't get me wrong; those are two really strong programs. Nobody's debating that. Right. But by my count, their only good win on the road was at South Carolina. They won at UMass, had a win at Mississippi State, and that credit to them. That South Carolina game did come in the month of November. And you mentioned a couple of key players who won't be playing. What have you found when running the numbers on this team?
Cory, correct me if I'm wrong. South Carolina beat them. I'm pretty sure. So you're right.
I'm sorry. You're right. You're absolutely right, and that's why I don't know why I said Nebraska. Yeah, you're right. South Carolina. So those are 3 losses all away from home, and they got beat. It was a closer game, right? That South Carolina game was a little closer, but the other ones were
one-sided.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Well, let's get into the analytics. And, I'm not going to give away the story. We know that. But I will tell you what the numbers all showed. Kind of interesting. Here's what I did. As you know, a bowl analysis now is a lot different than regular season stuff. I don't care really how all the other SEC games have gone this year. I'm just zeroing in on Missouri and, of course, zeroing in on Iowa. So I took 10 games of each. Kind of obvious which games I would pick for Iowa, 9 conference games plus Iowa State. And in Missouri's case, they only play 8 conference games. That's a dirty little secret. They only play 8. And then I took the 2 best non-conference opponents that in my estimation, were. And I took 10 games on the part of each team. And, the exercise, evaluate them based on 25 different parameters. And then my goal, which is kind of unrealistic, but what I hope for, ideally I would find one parameter that accurately identified the winning team 20 for 20. That did not happen. And the next step then would be maybe just zero in on each team separately. Are there any parameters that were 100% win? If you won the parameter, you won the game. Any that would be consistent 100% with Iowa? And then looking at Missouri separately, are there any parameters that were 100% win in the case of Missouri? The answer is yes. Each of us had one parameter that was 100% win. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but I don't mind telling you this. In Iowa's case, that parameter was not 10 for 10. It was a parameter that had a couple of ties. But in the other 8 games, the team that won the parameter won all 8 of those games. 100% win based on 8 decided edges on the part of one team or the other. As you know, in those 10 games, our record was 6-4. 6 wins, 4 losses in those 10 games. Now addressing Missouri, they won 7 out of those 10 games. Same question. Is there one parameter that's 100% win? The answer is yes, there's only one. And that parameter, incidentally, did go 10 for 10. 100% win in all 10 games. In other words, if Missouri won the game, they won the parameter. If those other 3 opponents that beat them won the parameter, they, in fact, also won the game. So it would go without saying, Cory, if either team wins those 2 parameters, I would all but guarantee you that's the winning team. I know it's kind of a bold statement, but I believe it'll hold up. Now, here's the truth. One of those parameters is if you just want to play numbers, one of those parameters is likely to be won by us. And when you know it, the other parameter is very likely to be won by them. So we're probably going to split those 2. And at that point, you're looking at another 1-score game. That's probably what it's going to be.
So I'm guessing one of those parameters is edge on rushing yards. And
It
the
might
other
be,
parameter is edge in passing yards.
and you might be wrong in both cases.
Well, that's the most obvious. First of all, turnovers are hard to predict. I don't think you'd be so bold with average starting field position. And for the record, folks, Coach Patterson and I have not talked about this in advance, so I really am just guessing on those. But that would be my educated guess, Don. So you don't have to tell me if I'm right or wrong. I know you won't.
I will share these parameters with you. So I've already said 2 parameters, one of each, one for us, one for them, have been 100% win over 10 games. Here's another way to look at it, though. Let's go back and let's look at each of our 6 wins. Are there any parameters that we won in each of those 6 games? You'll find this interesting. There are 4 that we won in each of those 6 wins. This will make sense to you when you think about it. Those 4 parameters, I don't mind telling you. We won on average starting field position. We won on turnover margin. We won on super explosive plays. And we also won on fewer penalties. If you think about it, Cory, that's precisely how we win football games. We win on field position, win on turnovers. We eliminate home run plays. And we also have fewer penalties. That's our formula for success. It would only make sense that if we won those 4, we might win each of those 6 games. And it'd be nice if we could duplicate that effort against Missouri, because I think that would very likely produce another win. Here's another way to look at it. Are there any parameters that Missouri won in each of their 7 wins? There's only one. And of course, it's that same parameter that was 10 for 10. And of course, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Incidentally, just talking about.
You're not, Don? You're not going to tell me what it is? All right.
I'll tell you after the game. I'll be happy. That brings up a good point. Post game, maybe you haven't thought about it yet. I'm assuming you'd like to go right after the game. And I'm assuming also that's what our listeners would like for us to do.
Don, we haven't talked. Are you going to be at the game?
No. And a lot of people have asked me, and I've simply said, if I knew that it was Kirk's last game, I'd be there. And I'm going to take him at his word. I don't think he's done coaching for Iowa. Consequently, we're not going to go to Nashville. And the beauty of that is I'll be taking notes during the game, and I'll be ready to go on the air as soon as you want to. Okay.
Perfect. Well, Jack, we appreciate the super chat, and this won't be the last we talk about keys to this bowl game. I'm sure we'll talk about it at the tail end of the show as well. And Cyhawk C Money, thank you for reminding everybody, hit that like button. Don, I looked at this right prior to hopping on. We are at about 100 subscribers away from the 10,000 mark. So we've slowly gained. It would be amazing if we could get those 100 by the time our final post game of the season ends next Monday. So, folks, if you're here, we're just under 100 people watching right now. So, first of all, hit the like button in the short term. Be sure to subscribe. If you're not subscribed, tell your friends to subscribe. Be sure you're subscribed on all your accounts. We know a lot of people have multiple accounts, so be sure to do that as well. It certainly does help. And Esther, I am doing good. Appreciate you asking. And OS for Hawks. Yes, again, thank you for being sure to remind everybody to hit that like button. Let's go to our phone line, Don, and take our first caller of the day. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? I'm sorry, say that again. You cut out.
Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Well, Merry Christmas to you and Coach Patterson. Thank you for all the great coverage throughout the year. I want to start with that.
Thank you.
So a couple of comments and then a question at the end for Coach Patterson. So I am maybe in the minority. I don't think Iowa needs to continue to look in the portal for a quarterback. I just don't know who they're going to get that's going to be an appreciable upgrade. I feel optimistic about Sullivan, Stratton, Hank Brown, and their potential. I know there may not be a lot of track record there to evaluate them on, but given the track record of the past, I've lost count 8, 9 quarterbacks. It's been pretty bleak. So I just don't know who we're going to get in the portal that's going to be significantly better than those guys. And they bring something that we haven't had, which is mobility and potential ability to create plays. And I know you've stated the opposite of that in the last couple of podcasts as well. But agree to disagree with you on the necessity to get a quarterback in the portal.
Well, real quick, let me just pause you for a second. I'm not saying you're wrong. Appreciate your take on this, but Hank Brown and Jackson Stratton are not mobile.
Fair. I guess my bar is pretty low, given we've had Herman Munster type quarterbacks
compared to Dick and him.
So
yeah.
Agree. Fair point. Maybe I'm wildly optimistic here. I'm not having any bourbon or whiskey, but maybe I'm just optimistic that they have the potential to be more dynamic. I'll say that. Maybe not mobile, but less statues in the pocket.
I would agree with that. I think Hank Brown certainly is more mobile than Deacon Hill, Spencer Petras, and frankly, Jackson Stratton is probably more mobile than Deacon Hill, Spencer Petras. And I will say this, when Jackson first got to Iowa, and let's keep in mind, initially committed to Washington coach, Jed Fish leaves that job, he decommits, and perhaps his offer was not honored by the next coaching regime. That's possible. Ends up at Colorado State. Never really plays there. Had one touchdown pass for, I think, 40 yards. We kind of threw the ball up and it was caught for a touchdown. But in general, never saw the field. Comes in as a walk-on. And at the time I said, hey, great ad. You're adding him as a walk-on. Great. Fabulous. I don't know that he's a future scholarship guy, Don. I don't know that he's a future Power 4 quarterback. And if Tim Lester is some quarterback wizard and that transpires during his tenure here, great. And Steve may be totally on track with his assessment of all three of those guys. And for the record, Steve, I really like Brendan Sullivan. I think he is the odds-on favorite to win the job in 2025. And I think his upside is maybe higher than what we've seen of any Iowa quarterback since at least 2019. I don't think there's any question about that. So I'm not negative on any of those guys. I'm just looking at, we're kind of throwing a lot of ifs out there. Like, we don't know that Tim Lester is going to be able to develop these guys, Don. I mean, what's your take, Coach, on what Steve's saying as it relates to quarterback? Do they need to add another guy? Because right now they've got, 5 guys, 2 of which will be walk-ons. We assume Jackson Stratton is going to stay put. And then you bring in Pat Fitzgerald's son as well, along with Jimmy Sullivan, who's on scholarship. Do they need to go after another guy?
Well, only if we can absolutely upgrade on the top end of the depth chart. Needs to be somebody that is widely regarded as being in competition with Sully for the job. And I'm not going to discount Shaggy's opportunities because he does have a nice ability to throw a football. That's a plus. I don't know. I don't think he's quite in Sully's league in terms of extending plays. I think Sully has an edge there. Sully has a lot more experience overall and a lot of athleticism. You might argue that Jackson has a slight edge in terms of pure passing ability, maybe. But I think there's so much to be said for experience. And Sully's got a lot of game experience. And that makes him a good candidate to be our starter, not just in the bowl game, of course, but all of next season. Having said that, there are years, as you know, there was a year when we played 5 different quarterbacks because the first 4 were injured. Now, that's only 1 year out of 40, but it can't happen to you. It happened to us back in 1994. It's rare when it happens, but it's not that uncommon for a couple of guys to go down, at which point you're down to your 3rd quarterback, and that could very well happen to us next fall. As you know, Cory, we have a difficult schedule. Not that equates directly to injuries, but obviously it's going to take a monumental effort to be able to win some of these games next fall. And in that regard, you can bet that the starters are going to be out there playing probably from start to finish. We can only hope that some of our most difficult opponents might come down to the last 2 minutes of the game. And if that's the case, of course, the starters have to play the whole game. So having said all that, unless we can bring a guy in that can be legitimately in competition with Sully for the starting job, I don't see much reason in doing it right now because some of these young guys that don't have experience do have a lot of promise, a lot of potential, and I want to give Tim Lester credit for being being able to do a good job of developing their skills up ahead. In that regard, I don't want to be too pessimistic about our quarterback projections for next fall. I think we at least have a chance to be more than adequate to get the job done at that one position. And I'm putting most of that stock, of course, in Brendan Sullivan. I think he's the best opportunity. He has the best opportunity to get the job done the way we need to get it done.
If I will say this, if Devin Brown is willing to entertain Iowa and take a visit, Steve, I believe you welcome him with open arms. You entertain that. And I know, the Caleb Brown Ohio State experiment didn't necessarily work out. The Michigan experiment with Cade McNamara didn't work out. But I think Devin Brown would be a guy. I don't know of anybody else in the portal as of right now. There are more guys could enter the portal. We have to remember that. There's still bowl games to be played. You've got grad transfers that could enter potentially even after the portal window closes. In my opinion, if Devin Brown he's already entered, but if he's willing to entertain Iowa, you bring him in. But I agree with Don, Steve. I don't know that you have to go get another guy. I just think if you can solidify the top end of that depth chart, you do it, because there's still some questions about the guys. Even if Tim Lester proves to be the developer and the quarterback wizard that we all hope he is, he has not done that yet. And I just think you need to have a backup plan if the development of a couple of these young guys doesn't work out.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you said, and I'll try to be brief here and get to my two other comments in my question and drop off so others can call in. I agree 100%, and that's why my initial statement was appreciable upgrade. I just don't know that we can get an appreciable upgrade, and I don't know that we're attractive to enough to get an appreciable upgrade, because the offense is what it is. And without going into the realm of unknowns, do we know what these kids are getting paid, or is it sensationalized? And it seems like the value in the portal is anyone's guess, and it seems like folks are really their value is almost irrationally high in some cases. So without any of us knowing all those details, fact or fiction, I guess my question for Coach Patterson is, put yourself in as an OC or as a head coach. Like, what are you selling to a QB to come to Iowa, given the offensive struggles and where they're at statistically, and what is being put in their ears by opposing coaches? Because I believe that was one of Bo Preblau's, I never pronounced his last name right, the quarterback from Penn State's comments, was he just found Missouri's offense more interesting. What do you tell a kid to try to get him excited to come to Iowa? And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thanks,
both.
Steve.
Well, I will admit that's a tough sell. And I think the best chance you have to sell that, you need to be able to mention specifically, let's talk about a new receiver coming to town that is a difference maker. We need to find one of those, because that will enhance our chances of getting the right quarterback. They want to believe the guys on the other end of those passes are going to be able to make a lot of plays. And let's face it, the guys that are on our roster right now haven't been able to really prove as much as we'd like for them to. They have a lot of promise and that sort of thing, but they haven't accomplished great things yet. And there's no guarantee they will next fall either. I think their attitudes are all in the right place, and that gives them a chance to make significant gains from one year to the next. But short of that, we need to find a guy that can take the top off the defense. And they're out there. Matter of fact, I think one of them's already visiting campus. Remember our guy from Troy? I don't think he was especially tall, but I know he was able to make big plays against Iowa. And I'm pretty sure he's visiting campus already. And he's an example. Maybe not a huge name, but he's got ability to make big plays. Go ahead, Cory.
When you say having visited campus already, what do you mean?
I thought he'd already made a trip to campus. Maybe not.
For the game? For the game against Iowa? You're talking about a different visit?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Sam Phillips visited the Chattanooga FCS receiver, wideout that's highly sought after.
I don't even remember the name of the Troy guy, but as I recall, he had 3 touchdowns against us.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. And he is in the portal. Devontae Ross. So yeah. I'm not aware that Devontae Ross has visited campus, Don.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Somebody mentioned that he was either scheduled or he'd already been here.
Okay. Well, that would be great. He visited Penn State 3 days ago, and he may have taken another visit. But no, he would be a guy. Sam Phillips is a guy who was on campus over the weekend, Don, and he has put up some really impressive numbers, albeit at the FCS level. And he's one of those kids. He stands at 5'9", Don, and I'm almost in the opposite direction of what the previous offensive staff, offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, sort of their recruiting methodology, or their what they look at as an ideal receiver as far as size is concerned, because they looked at guys who were 6'1", 6'2", 6'3",
Right.
typically. I'm almost like being pulled in the opposite direction based on some of the things you've said in the past, based on some of the great receivers that play this game, not only at the college level, but in the pros, based upon what Tim Lester has done with small receivers at Western Michigan. So this actually intrigues me that he's 5'9", because that tells me he's probably got really good ball skills and good speed.
Absolutely. By the way, how tall was Tim Dwight?
5'8", 5'9". I've stood next to Tim Dwight. He's not much more than 5'8".
But he could outrun just about any human being on the face of the globe for 40 yards or for 100 meters, for that matter. Explosive speed. Robert Smith was the same way. Coach Fry, you've heard me say this, famously stated, "We do not weigh or measure a man when he crosses the goal line. They're all worth 6 points. Doesn't matter how tall you are." Truth is, Cory, you think about it, is it hard to imagine a shorter receiver might have shorter legs? And is it hard to imagine that the shorter receiver might actually have slightly better foot quickness? I'm talking about being able to put your feet on the ground one after the other as fast as you possibly can. Is it hard to imagine a shorter receiver might have better actual quickness? Maybe not necessarily top end speed, but quickness to get off and separate from a defender than an even taller receiver. The truth of it is, I think their feet in general are a little bit hotter than the taller receiver, if only because their legs are shorter. Hope that makes sense to you. Because we've seen guys that were absolutely electric, some of which ended up playing on Sunday. What's our guy from Purdue that was so good, that really put up great numbers? He was also undersized.
Which small Purdue receiver wasn't good, Don?
Maybe there's been more than one. I can't remember the name.
David Bell, Rondale Moore.
Rondale Moore, who I believe is playing for Arizona, I think.
David Bell wasn't too bad either, Don.
I think he was a little bit taller, as I recall.
A little bit taller, but not much.
Moore was not very tall.
Yeah.
You've heard me tell the story. I recruited a guy at Western Illinois. He was 5'4". And you're thinking, what in the world can a guy 5'4" do? Oh, I don't know. Return a touchdown on a kickoff return against Nebraska in Lincoln. That's pretty nice accomplishment. He also had a 94-yard punt return for a winning touchdown against Eastern Michigan. He also played well against, LSU. He was short, but he was explosive. And he had great hands. And you can win with guys like that because smaller guys in general have a little bit of COD. And you know what I mean by COD? Change of direction. They're able to get their feet in the ground in a hurry, if only because they're not quite as tall. Or think of it this way, their hips are not quite as removed from the turf as a taller receiver. If it's going to become a jumping contest, you like the taller receiver. But sometimes it's not a jumping contest. It's a question of being able to avoid a tackle in limited space. And the quickest guy has the best chance to do so.
Real quick, Don, does a head coach or a coordinator, guy who's evaluating potential recruits, do you look at, when you're looking at stats, do you look at yards per catch? Is that ever something you'd look at specifically, or is it more so like, I got to look at a guy's team?
It's so much a reflection of who they've played against. So that's the only reason I'm a little bit hesitant. Yards per catch can be misleading, if only because maybe the guy with the great yards per catch simply doesn't have many catches. And for all we know, he also drops 20% of the time. So he got a great yards per catch, but how about yards per drop? I'm pretty sure yards per drop would be 0. And everyone he's dropped has been worth no yards.
Okay, well, real quick, can I just show? This is why I bring that up. This is Sam Phillips. So people that don't know, this is a young man who was on campus here over the weekend and played at Chattanooga. Don, you know FCS football. Chattanooga is a solid program, right? Is that fair?
I don't know that much about how they've done this year, but I think in general they win maybe more than they lose.
Yeah. So here are his 2024 stats. Again, 5'9", $185. He's from Georgia. Then you look at his numbers. What stands out for me, Don, is this number right here, 16.4 yards per catch. So maybe you're going to tell me that doesn't mean a whole lot. 803 yards on the season, 49 catches, and pretty solid for 3 years. Very consistent. 3 straight years of 600 plus receiving yards.
Yeah, those are good numbers because that shows he's been very productive now for 3 full seasons.
Don, what kind of a schedule for fans looking at you're our FCS specialist. So, of course, you have the blowout loss to Tennessee, but most of these opponents on this list, you're like, okay, I have no idea who this is. So you see a couple of big performances. Sam Phillips goes for $150 against Portland State, 110 yards against Eastern Tennessee, 195 against Georgia State. Now, Georgia State's been a pretty good FCS program, correct?
Well, I think in general, Cory, FCS programs in the Deep South, or for that matter, in Texas, they in general have really good skilled players because there are a lot of really good athletes in the South and in the state of Texas, and they can't all go to big schools. There's simply not enough slots. So you do find good skill at schools in the Deep South, and of course, you're a little bit familiar with East Texas State University, or here's another one that's made a transition to FBS, Sam Houston State. They have good skill players. Here's another school that comes to mind, UT San Antonio. I will promise you has good skill, and that's one reason UT San Antonio wins. It's not because they're grunting and groaning and pushing people off the line of scrimmage. It's because they're beating them with big plays.
Don, did you watch the famous Idaho Potato Bowl?
I saw a few minutes of it, only enough to be reacquainted with that blue field.
Did you see
what was the final?
It was double overtime.
And the final?
Northern Illinois, they won by a touchdown in double overtime.
Wow.
But incredible, and some of it's just bad special teams play. You have Northern Illinois missing a kick with like a minute and a half to go from like 37 yards. Then this is the most incredible part of it. You have into regulation. Fresno State takes the ball down and they get like a 25, 28-yard field goal attempt. Well timed as it relates to clock management. The Fresno State quarterback runs on the final play before calling their timeout, runs to the absolute middle of the field, right in between the hashes, goes down. And this field goal kicker misses like a 28-yard field goal attempt wide left.
Swallowed the apple, as we say.
It's unbelievable. But Don, am I sick? You can tell me I'm sick if you want. Am I sick because I love these bowl games? I love watching these bowl games, Don. They call feast week, whatever week that is for college basketball. This is my feast month. I love watching all these obscure bowl games. And I'm 10-4, right? 10-4. 10-4 in my bowl picks right now. And you want to know my 4 losses, Don? Stupid me. I believed in Indiana. I had Indiana beating Notre Dame. I also had Tennessee beating Ohio State. So those were just bad picks. And then I had
Tennessee would say it's a bad pick at this point. They didn't say that.
Don, can we address real quick? Can we address the stuff right now with Kirk Herbstreit and the naysayers? I know there's a lot of controversy right now with some of the pundits who have been critical of the playoff committee in hindsight. Now that you look back at what happened with Indiana and Notre Dame and what happened with SMU and Penn State, personally, here's how I feel. I think it's just an indicator that you have a lot of you have separation. I think 12 teams. I know you've been an advocate for either 8 or 16, but 12 is enough. I don't think you have to go to 16. If anything, you could cut it. You could reduce it to 8 and be fine, and you might be better off. But Don, I don't think that this is an indicator that the playoff committee got it wrong. I just think that's an indicator that there's a divide somewhere after you get out of the top 8 to 10 teams the few teams below those marks are just substantially worse. And you have to play on the road. Like, I think we have to realize what Tennessee was going into, what SMU had to go into. SMU is coming off a very, very emotional win in their bowl game, or emotional loss in their bowl game to Clemson.
In their championship game.
Yeah, exactly. In their championship game. And I don't know, just weigh in on this, because there's a lot of people that say that that we no longer should look at win-loss record. We should be looking specifically at who you've beaten, who you haven't beaten, and certainly that's a factor. But if we go that route, to me, we're completely taking away from what college football has been as it relates to the regular season and the value behind the regular season with this expanded playoff. And I think that would be to the detriment of the sport.
Well, to be specific, Cory, about what I campaigned for, I was against 12 teams, you're right. But to go on the record, I was also against 16. I argued the right number is 8. And you remember me saying that. And then to be more specific, let's go back to last weekend. You had 5, 6, 7, and 8, all of which won versus 9, 10, 11, and 12. And didn't just win, decisively won. I believe the difference of those scores, I believe, was 77 points. So on average, more than 19-point losses. And then to be more specific, let's remember the closest of the 4 games on paper was a 10-point loss. But let's be honest, with 2 minutes remaining in the game, I believe the score was 27 Notre Dame, 3 for Indiana. They got a couple of touchdowns in the last couple of minutes of the game, and it sounded like it was close and hard fought, but it wasn't. It was really another one-sided game. To me, looking about the winners of those 4 games, you got to give a lot of credit to Ohio State because they were on a mission and beat a good Tennessee team. I think Tennessee got exposed a little bit. And let's not forget, University of Texas ran for about 350, as I recall, and beat a Clemson team that a lot of people would argue really didn't deserve to be there. You know, they had the long-range field goal to beat SMU, and they were in because they won the conference, but they were also the 12th seed. That gave you an idea what the committee thought of Clemson. So the bottom line, we could have very easily, and the thing that bothered me a little bit, Cory, I hate to see, you've heard me say on the record, I hate to see 4 teams get a bye in the first round. I also hate to see another 4 teams have home field advantage because I don't think that's very fair. Home field advantage is huge, especially if you're a team from the South having to make a trip to the North. SMU had to do it and play in South Bend. And of course, Tennessee had to make take on a difficult assignment in Columbus. Those 2 in particular were really, really tough assignments. And then, of course, Penn State didn't have much of an issue at all with it was Penn State SMU, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a one-sided game too.
And for the record, I'm happy for the Big Ten teams, but
absolutely,
to be quite frank, I'm to the point with all the in my opinion, SEC bias, because we heard very little after Tennessee got waxed by Ohio State. It was all about how the playoff committee got it wrong. Indiana wasn't deserving. SMU wasn't deserving. Give me a break. Second off, I am rooting for Boise. I hate to say I'm rooting for Boise. Now, will they beat Penn State? Probably not. I think the biggest problem we have right now with the 12-team format, Don, is who is getting a bye. Because if you're going to have 12 teams in, you have to have a bye. You have to have teams getting byes. Why is Boise State getting a bye? Why is Arizona State getting a bye? That's called stupid. Okay?
It is.
That needs to go away first. So if we want to fix it in the interim, fix it for 2025, and let the committee decide who gets the byes based on the work as a whole. And quit. I know the ideal is you have 4 solid power conferences, but that's not reality.
Not the truth.
It's not reality.
The truth is there are 2 really powerful conferences, and even those 2 are kind of careful to be sure that all the projected top teams do not all play each other. That's the way to give you a chance to get 4 teams in the playoffs out of 12, as we did. But how many games were in common among those 4 Big Ten teams? Not that many, really, when you think about it. In theory, each of those 4 teams could play the other 3, right? Well, that'd be a total of 12 games. There aren't even anything close to 12 games involving those 4 teams. I'm curious how many games were played. I remember Ohio State. Let's see. Indiana played at Penn State, as I recall.
And they played Ohio State as well.
And, of course, Ohio State had to go to Oregon. But that's only 3 games that come to mind. And there are a lot of games that simply didn't get played.
But people advocating for Alabama to be in over an SMU, for example, when Alabama got their pants pulled down by Oklahoma and Vandy,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that SEC bias nonsense. I just get so tired of that.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way, Don, but it just – the problem now with the way these conferences are set up and the way the playoff is set up and the way these TV networks are married to these conferences. It's not just ESPN and the SEC. It's Fox and the Big Ten. And it's just – I think it's making the analytical side of looking at the game more biased, obviously, but less reliable. I don't know that fans are going to be able to trust the pundits because there's too many politics behind who's saying what at what point. And I have a lot of respect for Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler. I don't have a whole lot of respect for Paul Feinbaum because he's an SEC homer. But I just get, and I'm probably on social media too much during the playoffs because of the nature of this job. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. I do think the playoff committee got it right for the record. I think SMU and Indiana were the correct picks. Sometimes, Don, there are better teams. And to me, like, what did Indiana not do? I understand that their conference schedule was not as difficult as some other Big Ten teams or maybe even some SEC teams. But they're playing in one of the 2 best conferences in the country. They beat everybody except Ohio State, who's also in the playoff, and they played Ohio State, I thought, relatively tough in that game. I guess maybe part of my bias is it brings me back to 2015 Iowa, where Iowa did basically everything it needed to do. Didn't play a real tough Big Ten schedule, but plays in the Big Ten. Now, the conference is more difficult than it was in 2015, and you no longer have divisions. So to me, Indiana's 11-1 record is much more valid than Iowa's 12-1 record in 2015.
And even if that, somebody tell me this: what is Indiana's best win this year?
That's a good question. Indiana's best win. What's their best win, Don? Do you know?
I don't know. It's kind of underwhelming, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I just isn't it almost unfair though, Don? If you draw the wrong schedule, they're not in control of their conference schedule. If you draw the wrong schedule, you're basically told, too bad. Maybe wait for next year. Wait for a new draw next year.
Well, and I publicly stated, I do give Indiana credit. They had a softer schedule, but they also dominated so many of those games.
What else are they supposed to do? They're not scheduling these teams.
They didn't just show up and need to apologize after the fact for a win. They were pretty damn impressive in all those games. They won pretty convincingly.
To me, and other people disagree with this, but part of the luxury of having an expanded playoff is being able to add teams with this situation that got handed a schedule that they didn't create, but play in a Power 4 conference and dominate the teams they dominated. Look, Indiana didn't win once they got to the playoff, but they absolutely deserved being there because they went 11-1, and their one loss was competitive against Ohio State. I just get so tired of that narrative. Why do we have an expanded playoff if we're not willing to see a team like this out? Now, in answer to your question, Indiana's best win on the season was probably Michigan. Probably.
And what was Michigan's record this year?
I understand, but Michigan also beat those Ohio State Buckeyes, who were also in the playoff.
Let's talk about that for a minute. If Ohio State learns nothing else, don't try to beat Ohio State by playing in a phone booth. It's okay, Ohio State, to acknowledge we need to try to beat Michigan the same way we beat everybody else, by making big plays, by spreading the field. by being pretty aggressive with our play calling. Don't line up and try to outmuscle Michigan because you've proven that you have a hard time doing that.
Don, let's go to our next caller. We've had Doug here on hold for quite some time. Doug, welcome. Always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Merry Christmas. Been an emotional Christmas for me. But
Merry Christmas to you too, Doug, and I hope you didn't spend a lot of money on me.
No, I still did buy a lot of gifts actually, but gift cards and Venmo. I'll Venmo some people.
Doug.
Yes.
Hawkeyes won in Sioux Falls. Be happy. That's good. That's reason to celebrate. You ought to be celebrating.
Well,
you ought to be. Listen, you ought to be really happy because the Hawkeyes have blown a couple opportunities, but now they head into conference play with 2 decent wins against Wazoo and Utah, and now I feel like they're kind of fresh slate, right?
Yep.
Fresh slate. They didn't have any bad losses. Fresh slate. Got a couple wins that could be decent on the March resume, and now they can start building it out in conference play. Fran's the man. Go ahead, Doug.
Fran's the man. But I really liked your first caller, Steve, and what he was saying about our quarterback room right now. My question for you, Cory, is where are we at with the 105? Don't we have to cut players?
Well, they have been cutting. They have basically been cutting players. Do I know where the current number is? No. I can tell you a number of guys who have hit the portal. I mean, these guys have hit the portal, and I'm tweeting them out whenever they hit the portal.
Yep.
How many walk-ons have hit the portal? A dozen?
Mm.
You have a handful of scholarship guys who have left, and my guess is you may have a handful more guys leave after the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, as I mentioned, people need to realize graduates can leave at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where you're going with this, Doug, but
no, it's just I guess my question is because one, a lot of people are really upset about the Penn State guy not coming to Iowa, and I know a lot of FCS guys. You're talking about Sam Phillips from Chattanooga.
Yep.
I would rather get a guy from like Delaware or North Dakota State that's thrown for 3,000 yards and a grad transfer quarterback than go get, and I don't know who I'm talking about, then go get Cade McNamara number 2. I mean,
Cam Miller is from Solon, but does Cam Miller have eligibility? Don, you've done North Dakota State games. Does he have eligibility left?
I'm not sure that he does.
And I wasn't named.
I haven't done a North Dakota State game this year. I did see their game against South Dakota State, and I was glad to hear the play-by-play guy comment about what a good coach Randy Hedberg is. Just a reminder, he's got 3 guys playing in the pros already, and maybe our guy from Solon will be the next one. I'm not sure he's going to have a chance with an NFL team, but he is a good college quarterback. That's obvious.
Real quick, SB in the chat says, "Oh boy, Fran is the man. I need some bourbon now." Go ahead, Doug.
Hey, we'll see. But a couple guys in the chat mentioned, FCS guys, and you've already put their thing up, but Andrew and David both mentioned FCS guys, and I agree with that. Like, I mean, we kind of need, and again, nothing against the collective or our NIL, but we might have to moneyball it a little bit, and I think there's guys out there that might not be the names that we recognize, but are doing some amazing things. I guess my question is kind of what Steve's question was, and I don't know about mobility or who. We only have 5 quarterbacks as of now. It looks like going into next year. You kind of talked about maybe Sullivan being right now the number 1 if no one comes in. Do they need just to get quarterbacks to fill that room, get depth?
They got plenty of guys in the room. That's not the problem. Okay. I mean, they got how many guys we got? 5 guys right now in the room, Don. We're trying to trim the roster down to $105. The problem is, do you have enough good guys in the room?
Okay.
And they got 2 guys. First of all, they got 2 walk-ons. That's odd, right? Surface level, Don. That's odd. It's odd that you have 2 walk-ons. So I'm not convinced that Stratton is going to stick around. Okay. Am I convinced that that Kirk's going to say, "Oh yeah, we're fine with taking 2 walk-on quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, we're going to cut all these walk-on fullbacks and all these guys"? No, I think that's odd. Okay. So either Stratton knows the role as a scholarship guy or he's not. I don't know that, but I think it's odd that you're bringing in a non-scholarship quarterback right now when you already have one. Plus, you had Jimmy Sullivan, Hank Brown, and you have Brendan Sullivan coming back. I think that somebody else, chances are, Doug, somebody else is going to leave.
Okay, thank you for explaining that a little bit because that was a little confusing. But you, and again, I know you posted a video about Hank Brown already.
Yep.
What is this? Is Hank Brown? Where? I guess you have no idea. I don't have no idea. Who would be the number one going into the spring? Hank Brown or Sullivan, or we don't know.
Should be Sullivan. What has Hank Brown done to earn that? Should be Sullivan, without question. And by the way, one more thing to add to this mix, Doug, and this was tweeted out by a couple of media people. And by the way, I am going to be at the game, folks. So people who are curious about that, I will be at the game. I plan to, Don and I need to talk about this, but I plan to attend the post-game press conference. And there probably will be, as crazy as that sounds, for a post-game press conference, last game of the year, there will likely be recruiting questions.
Okay.
Because that's the era we live in. December is all about the portal now. But in answer to, you want to address what you just got done saying, Doug, because you're talking about numbers and portal people and all that. Somebody in the chat here, Andrew, brings up Mark Gronowski. There's rumblings out there right now that he may be a guy I was interested in. He's not in the portal yet.
Okay.
He's a guy I was seeing. He's been in Kinnick. He's been productive at South Dakota State. Don, you know a lot about Mark Gronowski.
He's a good quarterback.
So, but Iowa's already gotten hit over the wrist for tampering before. So, not that it's not happening everywhere, because it is. But let's just establish that right off the bat. Iowa's already gotten hit with that once. So,
my last question, kind of point going with this topic, because you asked, what are you selling to a potential quarterback? Are you selling a starting job to a potential quarterback? Would that be something that they would, or it depends on the quarterback? Are they looking for their starting quarterback for 25?
That's a question. That is a question for Don. I don't know how you don't guarantee somebody a starting role. You don't do that to anybody, Don, right?
No. You simply guarantee them a chance to earn the starting position, and it's only a chance. You've got to take the bull by the horns and run with it, And if you can't get it done, then I'm sorry. We gave you every opportunity. Spring ball should be, assuming we bring in one more guy, at the very least, if he's got that kind of reputation, it's he and Sully slugging it out to see who the starter is. And it should be equal opportunity for both.
It's a competition, right?
And by the way, I kind of went on a tangent and lost my train of thought. What I was going to bring up about the Iowa media members is people have reported this, and apparently I don't know the ins and outs of the rules here anymore, but Hank Brown and Jimmy Sullivan can practice right now. They can participate in bowl prep. Now, they can't play, but they can participate in bowl prep. And Don, that makes me think, or at least have hope for, that if Jimmy Sullivan is all that we think he could be, that maybe, just maybe, Iowa could potentially get him ready for next September, to where you have another scholarship quarterback battling for a job. Don, is it crazy to think that a true freshman at Iowa with a different offensive coordinator, a guy who understands quarterback offense, who understands the passing game, could potentially get a guy in Jimmy Sullivan ready for game action with an extra period here during bowl prep to kind of acclimate him to the system?
Well, first off, the bowl season for Jimmy Sullivan is going to be nothing other than him looking at a card and running a play that we expect Missouri to run. We'll at least learn something about his athleticism. The good news for us in terms of bowl prep, we'll finally have good scout team quarterbacks. And I'm not beating on the guys that have been taking snaps as a scout team quarterback, but it's simply some really athletic guys coming in that'll maybe do a better job of impersonating Missouri. And maybe we'll get a better preparation as a result. So that's one benefit of having the new blood in the program. They obviously not going to take any snaps for the varsity because they're not even eligible to be in the game.
But that's my point in bringing it up, Doug. My point of bringing it up is hopefully it's not just a battle between Hank Brown and Brendan Sullivan next fall. Hopefully it's a battle between all 5 guys or 6 guys you have in the room. Because we need to eliminate this, well, I hate to say it, but Brian Ferentz aura that has been at Iowa for a long time, where you basically have one guy that is just the anointed starter because you don't have enough people to compete.
And that's what I was getting at. It just seems like too often they hand the job to somebody and just, as we all know, he doesn't release it. And I want to make sure that everyone has a fair chance. And if they are going to get a quarterback out of the portal, that, you know, everyone has a fair chance. Like, he doesn't just say, you know, hey, this is the guy and we're going to stick with them. And because I don't know how they're, like you said, a lot of people in the chat are talking about reputation, and our reputation with quarterbacks is not good. And I just hope we have healthy quarterbacks. And I really like Sullivan a lot. We went to that Northwestern game, me and my dad, and we were very impressed with him. He went down and threw a pass to the tight end and went down and blocked for him. I don't know how many people remember that play, but he has some moxie. And moxie also means he might get injured quite a bit, so we might need a good backup. But I hope Brown and all of them do well. And again, hopefully somebody might come in. And like I said, I don't care who the quarterback is. I just want production.
Yep. And Don, real quick, Doug, don't log off yet. Take a look at the score right here.
Okay,
that score. You be happy.
Man,
you got a week before the next game. Just wallow in that.
Well, and on that subject, I want to take you back to the Iowa State game. Talking about basketball now, men's basketball. At the end of that game, I made the comment to Lisa. I said, I'm not sure that I've ever seen a Fran team play much better than what we played that night against Iowa State. And if we do that all season, we're going to have a really good Big Ten record. I really think that's true. Iowa State's good.
I agree with you. Played well for 36 minutes, Coach.
Yeah, and we gave them all kinds of things to worry about.
You can't expect to win games if you can't rebound.
Yep. But
let's back up. Misleading stat again, Cory. You know one reason we didn't have many offensive rebounds? It's because our initial shots went in the basket. Think about that.
They gave up too many offensive rebounds. That's the point. I don't care about how many. It's not like Iowa ever gets offensive. In general, Iowa shoots the ball really well anyways.
But you get my drift. One reason they won offensive rebounds is because they missed more shots on offense.
Cory, you do know that your show next week will be during the Iowa basketball game, right? Because they play right after the bowl game at 6.
What show? What you talking about? This show?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten any of that nailed down. We'll have to figure that out. Who do they play?
Yeah, I didn't realize Cory was going to be at the game.
I'm okay with you guys talking about our big win over Missouri. You don't need a basketball show. You can do the big win over Missouri next week.
We're first of all, nobody cares. Second of all, no, I'm just saying. Let's be honest. Nobody cares about New Hampshire, Doug. You and
I know.
I haven't looked at that schedule. What time is the New Hampshire tip?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. So we'll be on the air.
I'll keep you posted on score or something next week. Okay?
Here's the thing. I don't know how long Nissan Stadium will let me hang out there.
Okay.
If I do like a 2.5 hour show with Don, will they give me another hour there to do a basketball?
Cory, are you just going back
to ask what you're doing? You're going, I'm doing a post-game show for New Hampshire basketball. They probably look at you, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Cory, are you simply going back to your motel room after the game?
All right, thanks, Doug. I don't know. That's a good question. My plan was, given just the time constraint, doing it right there at Nissan Stadium, but it's all about whether or not we're allowed to, how long we're able to stay there, because given the fact that it's an early afternoon game, they may not care. They may let us stay there all day. And if I have space to do it there, I'd much rather do it there than have to take that extra time getting back to the hotel after Kirk's press conference. So we'll discuss that. We'll figure that out.
You to know, yeah, I'm more than agreeable to whatever you decide to do. It won't matter to me.
Well, we will be here, folks, and we appreciate your flexibility, Don. BJ wants to know, Don, should fans be concerned that the Hank Brown family is friends with the Lester family? Just hope Tim truly sees promise in Hank and is making professional decisions? That's a great question. It's a great.
And I will admit, I have some of those same concerns.
Okay.
Let's not forget. One of the reasons that we were excited about our guy from Colorado State is because of ties to John Budmeyer, right? I'm sorry.
Wait.
No, that's not true. That's one of the reasons we had an interest in Cade, right? Is because John Budmeyer.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the time.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'd like to believe that's a little bit of a concern. You just simply don't know. Is Tim entirely objective about evaluating this young man? It's hard to know. I don't know what Tim knows. But I do have a lot of faith in his judgment on quarterbacks. And I can only hope it's not affected by the connections that he has with the family.
They always say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So hopefully there's just a facet there, Don, where that was an in for a young man who is worthy of a scholarship at Iowa and an opportunity at the job.
Right.
Because I'm not aware of any like deep personal relationship between Tim Lester. Now, I believe he graduated in the same class as Hank's dad, if I'm not mistaken. I have not spoken with Hank. So don't quote me on that, folks. But hopefully it's just an in there that was used to be able to create a recruiting.
Yeah, the fact that we even went to the same high school, it doesn't mean they even know each other very well. Right? Yeah. We don't know. I'm not sure.
Exactly. Erica with the super chat. Thank you, Erica. Thoughts on Lane Kiffin, guys? Typo was on purpose. Don, Lane Kiffin's gotten a lot of attention here over the last week with his tweets. I know you're not on Twitter, Don, but did you see Lane Kiffin's comments regarding the playoff?
I don't even know what Erica's talking about. What's happened with Lane Kiffin? I did say Lane.
Here, I'll just read you the latest tweet from Lane Kiffin. This was let's find the. I guess he tweets a lot more than I realize. I don't follow Lane Kiffin on Twitter, but personally, I think he ought to be focusing on his job a little bit more. That's my opinion. But instead, he's very active on social media. So this was, let's see here, his tweet. I don't know why he tweets out stuff like Bo Pribula schedules a visit to Ole Miss. Why are you tweeting stuff about some kid visiting your school? To me, that just seems odd. Like, just focus on let the media people do what they do. Let the fans do what they do and stay in your lane. That's my opinion. But let me find the comment here from Lane Kiffin. Again, you see how many comments he makes on Twitter. Let's see here.
Looks to me like he has too much free time.
I agree. I think it's ridiculous that the guy spends this much time on social media. What day was the Indiana game, Don?
Oh, gosh. It was last Friday night. So what would that be?
19th?
20th, I believe. Yeah, 20th.
Maybe he deleted his tweet then. That's possible because that would be probably smart on his part if he did. But basically, he just tweeted some snarky thing about Indiana in the playoff and how, in support of his conference, and that's fine. But like I said earlier, I don't know what Ole Miss. I haven't studied Ole Miss's resume, but I don't see that tweet. So maybe he deleted the tweet. So Erica, if you have the quote on the tweet, feel free to throw it up in the chat, and we'll look at it. But yeah, I do not see it here. So look at this. Let's go Vols. He's tweeting "Let's go Vols" before the Ohio State game. Now, what sense does that make, Don?
None.
Very strange. I don't really have a whole lot of respect for Lane Kiffin, but Don, do you know Lane personally? I know you're pretty in touch.
I don't. I do know their video coordinator very well. He used to be at Iowa years ago. I knew him as a student back in our days, and he also was Kirk's video coordinator for many years. He ended up leaving for Mizzou for Ole Miss. I think simply for money, and you can't blame a guy. He's got a couple of children that he's got to save up for college for them. So you better yourself. At least you make more money at Ole Miss than what he was making at Iowa, and he does a great job. He did a great job for Iowa, and he's doing a great job for Ole Miss. I do think that Lane Kiffin maybe is a little bit quotable, a little bit like Hayden Fry was. Coach Fry was a personality, of course, and he would say some things that might make people wonder why he's spouting off, as they might say. But Lane Kiffin's also got good imagination as a football coach. I enjoy watching Ole Miss play because their offense always does show some good imagination. He's a little bit full of himself, I think, and I guess that for that reason he thinks people always want to know what he has to say. But I think go Tennessee doesn't count for much.
I couldn't care less what he says, Don. I could not care less. Yeah.
Well, I agree. It's really not much different to me than any other Ole Miss fan saying go Tennessee. Why? Why bother? You're not even a Tennessee fan. Not really. You might be an SEC fan, but that doesn't get you too far.
All right. Let's just real quick. Can I share this, Don? Because this is the comment from Lane Kiffin. So credit to who is this? CFB Alerts on Instagram because they screenshotted this. Really exciting competitive game, college football playoff. Great job. That was his tweet after the Indiana game, Don.
Okay, he had no comment after the Tennessee game, correct. I guess.
Very, very correct. Yeah. Drop the mic, Don. Drop the mic.
What was he suggesting, that he should have been one of the 12 teams? Is that what he's saying?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I don't even know how close they were to being among the 12. I didn't hear about them being the first ones out. Let's see. I remember hearing Alabama was one that was.
Well, they had to have been one of the first ones out because they're 14 in the country.
I'm sorry. I should say one of the last ones out.
Ole Miss is 9-3 on the season. Let's find their losses. They lost to Kentucky. That game was in Oxford. They lost at home to Kentucky. They lost against an LSU team that kind of struggled at times this year, Don. It's a talented.
Erica says Kentucky was 4-8. That's a bad loss.
And they lost to a 6-6 Florida team.
Well, they don't deserve much consideration then. Tell me their best win. Who was their best win?
Who is their best win? Who is Ole Miss's best win? By the way, they played Duke in the Tax Slayer Bowl. Their best win would have been Georgia. They did beat Georgia.
Well, that is a good win. I'll give them
It is a good win, but they also had some mediocre losses.
Yep.
So, anyways, record matters. I care about record, Don. I care about if you take care of business.
Right.
I guess,
That's especially the only reason you're upset with Iowa. 2 of our losses were to 2 teams that weren't even bowl eligible.
Had no business losing to.
Right.
Had no business losing. And by the way, Don, you and I have talked about this, but remember when I was getting ripped after that Michigan State game because I called Michigan State a crap team? They were 5-7.
You might have even stated, Cory, Michigan State's going nowhere. And it turns out you were right.
I was right. They're 5-7. UCLA was 5-7. Those are 2 bad teams that Iowa lost to. If you're below 500, you're a bad team, especially when you can schedule 3 cupcakes if you want to in the non-conference.
Right, as most teams do.
Yeah. Who did Michigan State and do you know who Michigan State and UCLA scheduled in non-con?
I can't recall.
Okay. I'll look this up as we're.
But it's a little bit underwhelming, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Let's go to our next call. Thank you, Erica, for the super chat here and the links to the. I believe you sent me the same thing I just found on Instagram. Appreciate that. Let's go to OS for Hawks, who's been on hold for a long, long time. Welcome to the show, sir. Appreciate you calling in.
Yes, I've gotten much older in that time span. That's terrible. I'm just kidding.
Still alive. That's positive.
Cory, I am a bourbon man, so I want to compare with you. I had a Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond 7-year tonight. Was mine.
Well, you're a little bit more. You're living more of the luxury life. This is just Bullet. This is a little bit of Bullet. So.
Well, that's not that bad. No, I have to. I got a Christmas present. I got my name in a bourbon raffle here locally in the Cedar Valley, and I was very fortunate and got my name drawn. And then when I saw what I got my name drawn for, my heart kind of dropped because I got my name drawn for a Russell's 15.
Ooh.
And the reason I say that is a $250 bottle.
Yeah.
And I was not going to do that. And my elderly mother said, you don't get the opportunity very often. She said, you go get that bottle and that's your Christmas present. So I have to say thank you to my mother. She's 93 and she bought me a $250 bourbon. What a Christmas present. By the way, Merry Christmas to everybody else in the chat. Have a wonderful year.
Thank you, sir.
What I wanted to talk about is you were talking about a couple things. We were talking about Jackson Stratton.
Yep.
I happened to watch a podcast today, and I won't name the podcast, but it's from an Iowa wide receiver and his wife that does a podcast from South Dakota.
Okay.
I think you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, Jackson Stratton was their guest.
Okay.
And there are a couple interesting things that came out of that. One, he was talking about the early, like the first 4 or 5 bowl practices. He said that they had the passing game was at the forefront of those first 4 or 5 practices. They worked hard on it. He said that, and he said that he was taking a lot of first team reps with Sully. And they worked extremely hard in the first 4 or 5 practices in the passing game. I found that kind of interesting that was a focus. And they didn't go beyond that because the podcast obviously that was taped several weeks ago, and that's all the practice they'd had so far. So.
I don't know whether I should read into that or not, Don. And for the record, I don't watch other podcasts, just not because I have anything against them, just don't have time. But Don, if Brendan Sullivan is healthy, are you surprised that Jackson Stratton would be taking some snaps with the ones away from him at this point? Or is that natural? Is that normal that you at least have a second guy take? Because for the record, Cade's gone, Marco's in the portal. You really don't have a whole lot of options for a second guy taking snaps with that unit.
Well, let's face it. If really, who would be a third quarterback? Is there anybody that might take meaningful snaps beyond those 2? I think that's it.
No, unless you want to get. Why would you give snaps to Hank Brown and Jimmy Sullivan, who are ineligible to play in the game?
Right. Is there anyone else on the team that would even qualify for a snap? Max White, I remember, was the third quarterback there for a while.
And for the record, and I mentioned this before, Marco Lainez was given the opportunity to remain with the team. I have not reached back out to my sources regarding that, but he is in good standing with the team, OS for Hawks. I don't know if he's I'm assuming he's probably exploring other programs right now. I've not heard about any visits, any offers. He's not a real public guy as it relates to that kind of stuff. So, but
yeah,
he would be a guy, Don, if he was healthy. But
yeah, I don't know anything about that. In fact, they didn't mention any of that. The other thing that I found kind of interesting was a little tidbit about Jackson Stratton has a kind of a unique. He's never been to Iowa before he came here, and I know what I was going to say. You talked about the Washington thing. Jackson got his scholarship pulled when DeBoer came in. They told him they did not have a scholarship for him, and that's the reason why he contacted Colorado State. So when DeBoer came in with his coaching staff, and this is from his mouth, he said that himself. So I just when I heard you talk about that earlier, I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing is Jackson Stratton's grandfather and CJ Beathard's grandfather were roommates in college and were best friends.
Well,
Bobby, you talking about Bobby? Interesting.
Yeah,
you get the long hair.
I did. Yeah, I didn't know that, and that caught my ear. I thought, wow, that's kind of that's a roundabout connection, but I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused. Is Bobby Beathard CJ's dad or his grandfather?
No, his grandfather.
Yeah, his dad.
His grandfather.
Yeah,
CJ's dad is a country music writer.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so it was their grandfathers were best friends in college. That's all he said. So, because they were talking about quarterbacks, and they were talking about Stratford Jackson's hair, and he had just, when he came into the podcast, he didn't have his hair. He cut his hair.
Oh, he did.
So they mentioned that about
No more
that.
Shaggy.
Yeah, no more Shaggy, and they were like, "What's going on here?" And he goes,
What's funny
always
about that is I haven't watched Scooby Doo in years, but isn't Shaggy? Doesn't he have short hair on the top? He doesn't have long hair.
I don't know.
I don't think him cutting his hair means he's no longer Shaggy, Don.
This may hard to believe, Cory, but I'm not a big fan of what's it called again?
You don't watch Scooby Doo?
Scooby-Doo?
Scooby-Doo. Yeah, I've never seen an episode of Scooby-Doo. I know that's hard to imagine, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, Jackson said that was habit for him, though. He said he always cuts his hair after the season, and then the springtime, when he starts spring practice, he doesn't cut his hair all the way through the end of the season. And somebody said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Well, first of all, I'm saving money, and second of all, he said, I'm really busy, and I don't want to take the time to go get my haircut."
I'll tell you this: I had a conversation with him at football media day, Don, in August. He's a nice kid. He's a down to earth, funny kid. That was one thing I asked one of his teammates. It might have been Marco about what to take away from his early time with Jackson, and it was his sense of humor. So he's a fun kid. I'm rooting for Jackson Stratton. I hope he ends up being the next great story. And let me just say this. I saw Northern Illinois earlier, that double overtime win over Fresno State. That's the other thing that I actually do like about bowl season, even though there's so much negative, the transfer portal and opt-outs and all that stuff done. It's seeing young guys, sometimes walk-ons, get opportunities when they otherwise would not have such opportunities. You had a walk-on quarterback at Northern Illinois, won them the famous Idaho Potato Bowl today, and he's going to have a scholarship awarded to him in January. I think that's a cool story to watch, and I would love to see – I don't want to see Brendan Sullivan fail, but I would also love to see Jackson Stratton succeed. And if that means Jackson Stratton earns a scholarship, so be it. Give the young man a scholarship. I think it'd be a great story.
The only other thing I'll bring one last thing about Jackson Stratton. They did ask the question, and it's not in this podcast. They asked hard-hitting questions, but they did ask him about portal and sticking around, and he said he had plans on staying at the University of Iowa, and that's all I'll say about that. I did have a question for Coach, and this is kind of tie into what I had heard from Jackson about them focusing on the passing game. I wonder if the coaching staff is going to put more of an emphasis on the passing game, being that Caleb is not going to be in the picture. Are we going to put more of an emphasis on throwing the ball in the bowl game than we would in a normal situation, not having Caleb? I know we've got two good running backs, with Bolton and Jazzy,
Why would they, real quick? Why would they do that? I'm not saying you're.
I agree with you. I'm not saying that they would. I'm just posing a question, just for comment.
All right, because you and I both know they're not going to do that.
Come on, Cory. I'm stirring the pot. Come on, let me have my
stir the pot as much as you want. Don, answer the question. You and I both know, if anything, they're going to run more because they want to get a good look at Jazzy and Patterson and Kamari Moulton. Don, go ahead and answer the question.
Well, since the subject comes up, this doesn't have anything to do with analytics. This is all about comparison of statistics, which I think you'll find interesting. I compared them in 12 different categories, and I thought these are the ones maybe that have the most significance. The last two listed are pass efficiency on offense and pass efficiency on defense. Okay, let's just address let's compare the two offenses. This is kind of a no-brainer for you, Cory. Who do you think has the higher rated passing efficiency on offense?
Who has the higher passing efficiency on offense?
I said it was a no-brainer now. I'm not trying to trick you here.
Between who? Who are we talking about?
Between Missouri and Iowa.
Oh, well, Missouri.
Missouri.
All right.
Missouri is ranked. Their passing efficiency is 130. That is the ranking of 85th. Now, this is all games played. They're 85th in the country. No surprise to you. we check in at 109. So 85 versus 109. They have a better pass offense. No surprise there.
That's not as significant as I would have expected.
It wasn't such a huge discrepancy, especially when you factor in that one of their greatest players on offense is no longer part of the pass offense.
Right.
Yeah.
And for the record, Iowa hasn't had any opt-outs at receiver. So
right.
Like they have not really had any opt-outs at skill position spots, with the exception being Caleb Johnson. I know it's a big one, but as it relates to the passing game, did anybody OS for Hawks, did you want to see Cade McNamara in the bowl game?
No.
Okay. Brandon Sullivan's back. Jackson Stratton's back. Jacob Gill's back. Will we see Reese Vanderzee? I don't know. But
according to KF in the press conference, Reese was going to be playing in the bowl game.
There you go.
Tuesday. So he said that. Yeah.
They're going to be at full strength, whereas Missouri's not, Don.
Yeah.
And I did have it from a reliable source that those early practices, you're allowed 15 practices for any bowl game. The early practices were a special emphasis on pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
And I do know for a fact that they were very encouraged as a group with the progress that they made in those practices. Oh. Now, let's move over to pass efficiency on defense. So this is a tougher question, Cory. Who is more highly rated, our pass defense or Missouri's?
Probably Missouri's.
Wrong. Okay. I was 34th in the country. Missouri is 67.
Don loves saying I was wrong. Go ahead, Don.
So is it possible that we've decided that Missouri is more vulnerable by pass than they are by rush? Maybe. I don't know that. But it is intriguing that we have a better, significantly better pass efficiency on defense than Mizzou does.
Down Jamari Harris. Keep that in mind. Down.
You're right. And to my knowledge, they have all their pass defense in the back end, all available for the bowl.
So maybe a little more even on both sides in the passing game.
Here's another shocker that'll surprise you. Who do you think has the best red zone touchdown percentage? Iowa or Missouri?
Iowa.
Iowa does.
Yeah.
And we're the same team that struggled to score touchdowns in the past. This year we improved. We were 63% touchdowns, and Missouri's only slightly behind, 60%. Next question. How about red zone TD efficiency on defense? In other words, who has the lower percentage of touchdowns allowed?
Iowa.
Iowa.
And you're both wrong.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Iowa only allowed 59% touchdowns. So offensively, we're 4 points better than on defense. The bad news for us, believe it or not, Missouri only allowed 55%. Now you're kind of splitting hairs. Numbers are close. But for the record, Missouri is actually better in preventing touchdowns in the red zone.
Can I ask you real quick? Can you respond to this comment in the chat, Don? Grant Williams says Caleb Johnson is Iowa's entire offense, and he opted out. Can you respond to that?
That doesn't know that much about what he's talking. How's that?
All right. Hey, real quick.
Tell him to keep his day job.
Grant, I love you, Grant, but you were my least favorite Maverick of the last 5 years. I'm glad they got rid of you, shipped you off to Charlotte. PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, those guys so much better and have actually made this team viable for an NBA championship. But I appreciate you at least stopping in Dallas for a short term. Go ahead, OS for Hawks. Anything else? We love you, Grant.
Did you hear? I'm sorry. I had to turn my mic off a minute. I started coughing after that. Grant Williams. No, I had didn't really have anything else. Only thing I wanted to say to you, Cory, if you want a decent priced bourbon option, I would recommend 1792.
1792.
It's a little more. Probably it's about a $30 to $35 bottle.
Where do you get them?
Oh, you can find it almost. Yeah, it's very It's readily available. Yeah.
I'm not a connoisseur by any means. So
no, I'm just saying if I'm thinking if you like Bullet and it's not overly that expensive, it's one that I like. as a sipper. So,
Real quick, can I give you a sipper?
Sure.
Holiday.
If I could find that, I would buy that. Yes.
Why is
Most
it very
definitely. Rare? No, I just can't find it in my area, but I know of the Holiday. Yeah. Yep.
You've looked for it before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Holiday. Yeah. I have a little bit left. It's very good.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's from Missouri.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that. Yep. I don't know why up here in northern Iowa, I have not found it around here yet, and I have actually been looking for it. But you gentlemen have a great holiday. Thank you so much for having me on, and have a great evening and have a super New Year's. So thanks.
Appreciate it, sir. Grant Williams responding to Don, when you pass the ball 10 times a game, it's not a crazy statement. So Grant is he is not backing down, Don.
Okay, I'm not backing down either. I'll say this. Our other running backs have that same offensive line that Caleb does, and our other running backs have also proven to be capable of ball carriers. We're going to be fine. We're going to miss Caleb for sure, but we're going to be fine with those other two because those other two are both good players.
And they don't have any offensive linemen opting out for this bowl game. So let's be very clear on this. They're losing Mason Richmond to the NFL, or at least to the draft. They're losing Tyler Ellsbury. Those guys are not opting out. They are, but assuming they're healthy, they're playing on December 30th. So I think that's positive. All right, let's go to our next caller. We've had James here for a long time as well. James, welcome.
Question first up before I get to my main points that I've been wondering.
Okay.
So with the new JUCO rule,
no.
I don't know if Don saw that. He doesn't get extra year?
No, the answer is no. That ruling for
Pavia played 4 years though and got 4 years. Does it only stand for him though?
Not a change in the rule. All they gave. What's the rule? What's the name for that, Don?
I'm sorry. Does this relate to region?
No, this is yes, but Diego Pavia got the ruling from the NCAA, or excuse me, from a judge. Right? He got a ruling from a judge. What do they call that ruling, Don? It's a.
I'm not sure.
Let me find the. Do you know the word, James?
No, but I think JUCO coach is saying it would affect them. That's how I don't understand how it's just
not. It's not like case law. Like this is not something that. Now it does set a precedent that other athletes could pursue.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it's standing for everybody. I didn't know if it's just.
No, it does not. It does not stand for. So this he filed a lawsuit basically. Yeah. And it's called an injunction, a preliminary injunction. That's the word I'm looking for. So would it potentially open the door for a guy like Weegan? Yes. But does it open the door right now? No.
Okay. No, I didn't know if that rule stood for everybody, though. I didn't know how that worked.
And by the way, thank you, Doc B. Colby is a guy I didn't mention. No disrespect to Connor Colby. But as it relates to Caden Weegan, I've talked about this before. He's the only guy I'm waiting on a decision from. Because my understanding is he does have a year left.
Yeah, he has one more, I'm pretty sure, from what I remember.
But could he get another year after that? Maybe. If he were to pursue similar things to what this Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt was able to do. I don't know that you are for that, Don, because, is that opening up the door for kids to be in college 6, 7, 8 years? Yeah.
We've already opened that door.
Well, we have in a sense, but no, it doesn't directly do that, Don or James, but it does potentially if a guy wants to pursue the legal route, the legal recourse.
No, yeah, I didn't know how that worked. That's why I was kind of curious.
I would say this: I would love for Caden Weegan to come back because I think he has the potential to become that kind of big play receiver we need. Also,
I agree.
Yeah, for sure, but
I think he might be able to be more, just like we saw him take his huge step forward. And I know he's behind Cooper DeJean, but he took a huge step forward in his career, being able to be instrumental in special teams play. Maybe he could take another big step forward and be instrumental on offense, given his speed and quickness. And stability, Don. One would think he's got that potential.
Absolutely. No, I think Caden's done a wonderful job for us as a return specialist.
What's the name? Wait, what's not maybe not names, right? But what's the position in the portal you still want to get, right? Because for me, I feel like I want a veteran corner because not that I don't trust those corners, right? But I think a veteran to lead that group still, somebody still to lead that group. But
I still think they need a quarterback.
Yeah,
I know.
I agree with you.
They don't need a quarterback for the room, but I think they to be able to be competitive against that 2025 schedule, Don. like if you could have got, I think that's why the Perbula thing was so devastating, in my opinion, because here is a kid who I think could have maybe been a game changer for them from a skills perspective. I don't know if how much you've watched of Bo Perbula, Don, but
it's not hard to imagine that he's going to do really well playing at Mizzou next year.
Agree. And if they can, like I say, if they can go out and get Devin Brown, go get him. If not, then roll with what you have and prioritize the receiver, James.
Yeah.
Probably go get a left tackle. I tweeted a little bit ago about a left tackle that just entered as a grad transfer. My guess is they're gonna prioritize a grad transfer because they got young guys I think they like that are potential tackles, but I don't know that they're ready.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was really helpful, Don, to get Ethan Hurkett back. We have not discussed that yet. That helps them on the outside on defense. But, corner is probably a position of need, James.
Yeah, I feel like, too, it's good to have a veteran in that group just to lead those younger guys. And they haven't all had snaps, right? They haven't had a lot of snaps in that room. So you kind of maybe want a veteran guy to kind of lead that group. But another question I got then, too, is like, I think that's the position too that I'm most excited to watch in the bowl game too is the corners, right? Kind of to see who takes the next step, right? See if somebody maybe takes a step, improves themselves, right? But between like TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee and John Nestor, right? See if like somebody takes a step between those three guys, right? And just see how they progress.
And real quick, let me make a correction because I was not aware of this. This is when you're not on social media 24. I'm not saying Keep Chopping is on social media 24 hours a day, but I did not see this article. This was just a few hours ago. Apparently, the NCAA has granted a blanket waiver now, Don, to players who are in similar positions to Pavia. While the legal process is playing out, the NCAA is appealing the decision made by a federal judge in Tennessee that granted this injunction to Pavia. But this waiver, although it does not extend to all junior college athletes, it does apply to those who have completed their NCAA eligibility this year. So even if Caden Weegan were not eligible to come back for another year, he would get it through this blanket waiver. So he's got at least another year, James, maybe two if they lose on that appeal and the rule changes. Yeah. But I think this is confirmation of what I said earlier. He absolutely has at least one more year remaining. And that will be a question as we head up to the bowl game because he's really the only guy that's left that would be very – Don, he's significant. Returning kicks, returning punts at the very least.
He reminds me a little bit of Tim Dwight. He hadn't shown that he's good as Tim is, but he's close enough to make it worthwhile to consider him as a game breaker next fall. Absolutely.
No, but and then another position, I think corner is obviously one position, but running backs is the other position too, right? You just want to see between Jazz, Kamari, and whether they give Terrell Washington or Brevin carries, you want to see those guys play, right? And see who could maybe be the leading back going into next year, right? Because I don't see them really adding running back in the transfer portal just because they have a lot of pieces there, right, already. And
yeah, they haven't. I'm not aware of any even contact at running back. I mentioned that here about a week ago, James. I
don't think you need to. But
yeah, I don't necessarily think you need to either. And based on what Liddell Betts has done, Don, you have confidence in him being able to identify guys, develop guys. And, hey, maybe Nathan McNeil, true freshman, ends up playing next year. We saw that with Kamari at a young age. Frankly, we saw that with Johnson and Jazz at a young age. And, hey, Jazz and Kamari together, good two-headed punch, if you will. And I like Brevin Dahl's speed and Xavier Williams' durability, I guess, his size.
Yeah, but no, it's just interesting to see, obviously, like you said, and obviously with only one opt-out, you know what you're getting back, but sometimes opt-outs do give you a better looks of like, oh, this guy can step up, right? Or maybe this guy needs to step up, right? But you don't have that, but obviously maybe that's a good thing because I know these guys want to go out on a win, and obviously it's important too, but it's just going to be interesting to see how the portal works, and not getting probably what was a little upsetting, but also I never think in my head that I was going to win a money race. So I don't know if it's a money race. I always think, okay, I was out of it. This is just the way I think, right? So, like, when I saw Ole Miss, to be honest with you, when I saw Ole Miss on there, I said it was over with. Not thinking Missouri would have beat them out, but because I thought Ole Miss had more money than both of us, Missouri and Iowa combined. So, but this is the way I looked at it. But no, it's going to be interesting to see, and hopefully we can get the win, go out on the right note for all those guys, Jay, Nick, Quinn, all those seniors on the offensive line, those guys we want to go out right for. And I agree with you in a way. I do want to see Brendan play well because you never know. Brendan might be your answer next year, but Jackson might be your answer too next year. So you never know how that's going to play out, right? So you do kind of maybe need to get a look at both of them. How do you guys think about them playing both of them? I guess the bowl game you want to win, but what's your thoughts on them playing both of them in a game like that?
I would love to see it, Don.
Well, my first thought would be I'm curious how they compare here in the bowl preparation. If one is clearly better, then I don't need to see the other one.
Okay.
And yet, if they're getting back to those early practices, it's not hard for me to imagine only 2 quarterbacks threw the ball on those days. And one simple way to handle the rotation in 7-on-7 would be simply to rotate that quarterback on every snap. That's maybe another reason that you saw so much of Stratton's work be with the ones. Maybe they're rotating on every play. We don't know what the rotation might be, but it's not hard to imagine that Stratton might be given some snaps with all quarterbacks. I'm sorry, with all receivers. And the other reason for doing it, of course, is to get all receivers reps with both quarterbacks because they might be in the game at any given time.
No. And then what's your thoughts? I don't know if you went over this because I missed the first part of it, but getting Jonah Price, to me, it's good to get more defensive depth on the defensive line anyways, right? Like, whether he plays a lot or not, right? You always need that depth because, Iowa doesn't always play 4. They go 5, 6, 7 deep sometimes at D-line, right? So it's always good to have extra depth. And I know it's Central Michigan, and some people are going to look at that like, oh, it's Central Michigan, right? Like, it's not a bigger school, right? And sometimes you never know; those guys could pan out, but you've seen a Jack Heflin not pan out as much from a MAC school, right? So you never know how it could work either way. But I just didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Don, I haven't cut a video on this yet. I plan on doing that tomorrow. But yeah, this broke just a couple hours before we went live. Central Michigan defensive tackle Jonah Pace has committed to Iowa. He took a visit here recently. He's got 1 year left, productive at Central Michigan. His stats don't blow you out of the water. I mean, he did have.
I hope you were going to say he was all MAC this year.
He was honorable mention all MAC.
Oh, that underwhelms me a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good ad. I'm not saying that, but I think Iowa needs help on the inside, and he's probably a depth guy, James. And whether people are hearing that or not, I mean, if Aaron Graves is back, and we expect him to be, and you get Brian Allen back healthy, you're not going to get Y.A. Black back. I believe Jeremiah Pittman's out of eligibility, right, James?
That one I don't know about. I thought he was back.
Deontay's out, right?
Deontay's back. I'm pretty sure Jeremiah was back, I thought, but I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, maybe Jeremiah's back. They need help. My point is they need help on the inside. They don't have a lot of bodies there.
Yeah.
Proven guys. They lost Chase Brackney, who I think was probably an interior guy. He's gone to the portal. They lose Caden Crawford, who's probably an outside guy. They lose him to the portal. So they just need bodies in there. I know that sounds – I know people don't want to hear that with the portal. They want to build – they want to bring in play-now guys. He is a play-now guy. I don't know that he's a start-now guy.
Yeah.
Maybe he is.
No, I agree with you on that.
Starter day one next to Aaron Graves, Don. Maybe he's a really good one. Like I say.
Well, you need a quality 2 deep for sure. Even 2 deep is a little bit thin. You'd like to think that you have more than 8 down linemen that can play winning football. And maybe he's already identified as one of the 8. So if he's a backup, that's okay. That's got a lot of value to have a quality backup that can come in and take reps in any and every game.
And Doc P in the chat brings up Jeff Bowie's another guy, James, that they've just lost people in that position.
Yeah, Bowie had a visit to you and I recently. I seen that him post that on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, right? But no, it's gonna be interesting to see, obviously, and I mean, it's just to see what Phillips' decision is, whether he chooses Iowa or not. I think we need another wide receiver, obviously, give us more depth there, and if he chooses Iowa, I'm be happy, obviously. Him or the kid, what's the Dwyer, right? That's the kid from Idaho, right? Dwyer.
Yes.
Jordan Dwyer. Yeah. I know. I just saying. I think Phillips obviously has your best chance, obviously, and I hope you can get him right and get you more room and get you more depth in that wide receiver room because, like you said, you never know. We've seen to be injured a lot of wide receiver in the last couple of years. Hopefully, it doesn't happen next year, right? But you always need that depth because you never know with injuries. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Enjoy you guys tonight and go Hawks, and it'll be fun to see how those last campaigns are. This is how I'm going to say it. I don't know what to think about it, but without them having Luther Burden, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But.
One more game to watch. I'm going to enjoy the game as you are.
Yep, for sure. Enjoy that.
Thanks, James. Doug says, I never worry about our secondary because of Coach Parker. So now they have had some issues, Don. It hasn't always been smooth sailing for Xavier Wampa. It hasn't been smooth sailing for TJ Hall at all times. And John Nestor, he's young, but those guys have something to prove. This bowl prep, Don, they have something to look. Your guy TJ Hall has something to prove during the bowl game because he's got an opportunity to be the starter next year. But there's also a possibility he doesn't win a starting job.
Right. Right now, I would say neither one of the starting corners has the position nailed down.
Yeah. And by the way, I did not realize this. Jordan Dwyer is committed to TCU already. So I can't follow all these people during the portal, but Iowa did reach out and offer the Idaho receiver. Apparently he's committed to TCU now. So Sam Phillips is their best possibility at this point. All right. We need to wrap this thing up, but we've got one more caller. No, we've got two more callers. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And you've got Coach Don Patterson, the legend Coach Don Patterson here, ready to chat with you. Who's on the line?
It's Kyle Thompson.
Hey, Kyle. How you doing, buddy?
Good, you?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you hanging on hold for so long.
It's been a long time.
It has. You're a good man for waiting.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas, Kyle.
Merry Christmas to you. And I know you're talking about the poor. Like, it's kind of frustrating for us because, like, we're getting these lower power four school guys because I know we're not really a blue blood school, but I just feel like, like some big time players, like, some players from big time schools would try to take a chance on us because of what our offense has been for the past few years. It's kind of frustrating, but I just wish some players would take the chance and trust Tim Lester to do it, because I know they want to get some playing time. I believe Lester would use the best of their abilities to play them.
Well, I don't think you're wrong, Kyle, but I do believe that it's going to be hard even for Lester to, look, Don, he's built something here in year one with the run game. He's not yet done it with the passing game. So you're selling potential, you're selling past examples, whereas programs like Mizzou and, Penn State and these different programs that have established passing games, they're selling material. They're selling something more tangible that you can show a person. It's still going to be a challenge. As much as I like Tim Lester, it's going to be a challenge until he does it. And he may have to prove it with a guy like Hank Brown or Brennan Sullivan that other people have doubts about. And hey, if he can do that, more power to him. It's even a better story, Don, than having to go out and buy somebody in the portal. So more power to him. But Don, that'd be my 2 cents.
Well, we're still a work in progress, but I know I am encouraged with what I've heard about the progress we've made, even here in preparation for the bowl game. We'll see how well that shows up on game day, but I'm encouraged by what I've heard about how those recent practices have gone, because I think we've shown definite improvement in the passing game.
I really hope we play well. I know Caleb Johnson's opting out for Missouri. I know their top receivers opting out. Is there any other opt-outs for Missouri that are not playing?
We ran through those earlier, Kyle. Don, I don't know if
starting right tackle. Their best offensive lineman is opted out.
Yep. So there are a couple more for Missouri probably than Iowa.
Yeah. I mean, opt-outs are a new thing. There's nothing you can do about it, but you have to make a decision what's best for them, and hopefully they have a good professional career.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you hanging on hold for so long. It's always a joy to talk to you, and I'm guessing we'll get you for football post game on Monday.
Maybe I will, maybe I won't.
Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Don, maybe I'll show up for post game. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, Don. So
I'm betting on you showing up. I know you, Cory. You're not going to disappoint.
You have.
Let me mention a couple of other stats that you'll find interesting. These do offer encouragement for us. How about turnover margin? Okay. We are plus 13 over the regular season. That is 7th in the country. Not hard to imagine that Missouri is somewhere behind us. They are. They're plus 7, which gives them a ranking of 26. So that doesn't guarantee anything, but it does suggest if somebody wins turnover margin, it's more likely to be Iowa. If it's +1, it only has limited value, but maybe it can be +2. We'll see. But even +1, of course, I'd rather be +1 than -1. I'll say that. So even +1 does have some value. That's one stat in our favor. How about net punting? Is it hard to imagine, Cory, that we have a better ranking in net punting? The answer is yes, we do. We're ranked 42nd. Missouri, meanwhile, is ranked 84th. So that's a plus. How about punt returns? Who do you think wins that?
Iowa.
Even more decided for Iowa. Iowa's 25th in the country. Missouri is 113. So looking at these 12 different parameters, Iowa actually won 7 of them, and Missouri only won, let's see, maybe I'm wrong, 7 to 4, actually. There's 11 of them. Yeah. Here's one that's interesting. It's a really simple exercise. Let's talk about predicting a score for the game, Cory. Here's one way to look at it. How about Iowa's scoring average on offense coupled with Missouri's scoring defense numbers? Iowa scores at 28 points per game. Missouri allows 20 points a game. So let's add those together and divide by 2. That would suggest Iowa's going to have 24 points. And let's do the same with Missouri. Missouri averages 29 a game. Iowa's defense only allows 17 a game. We add those together and divide by 2. Total is 23 for Missouri. If you just combine those numbers in opposite directions, the final is going to be 24-23. That sounds good to me. I'll take it.
I think you're going to be hard pressed to get to 24, Don, but that's my opinion. Kyle, thank you for calling in, sir. We always enjoy it.
There you go. Go Hawks and Merry Christmas.
Go Hawks. Appreciate it, sir. And Lemansky, appreciate the super chat. Always appreciate you being here, sir. You're one of our favorites, and appreciate you being a premium subscriber. And he brings up the cookies in the Patterson household. They are amazing. Don, has Lisa made any of her infamous oatmeal cookies here of late?
Well, here's lately what she's come out with, better than oatmeal. How about, she refers to it as pecan bark.
Oh.
I love pecan pie, as you know. So how about pecans and caramel all on graham cracker crust underneath? It is like a slice of pecan pie. And yet you can just pick it up and put it in your mouth. That's very good. And another Christmas tradition for us, she always prepares me some snowballs. And I don't even know exactly what's in those snowballs. Of course, they have powdered sugar on the outside. But all I know, to be sure I don't get too much powdered sugar on me, I simply pop the entire snowball in my mouth at one time, and I enjoy it for a while before I swallow it all. They're delicious. And she's made some of those, and I'm kind of careful with who I offer them to because I don't want them to run out anytime soon. I think I've got about a dozen left. I started with 17. I do remember that.
If I could bribe Lisa, I would bribe her into having some cookies, those pecan cookies, ready for me on my way down to Nashville, and I would beeline off of 380 over to the Patterson household and do that. But
so that's all it would take is just a chance for some pecan bark.
Real quick, I don't want to put a plug in for any people that aren't sponsoring the show, so I won't name the company, but there's a company that most people know that has a flavor of the day for their ice cream. Don, and I had this last week. They had a pecan pie cheesecake flavor, and it was amazing. All right.
I was going to say to die for. Maybe not quite that good.
I mean, it was really good. So, yeah. And let me just put a plug in for one company. And I will say this because I don't think there's any chance that they're going to be sponsoring this show. So what the hey, I'll do it anyways. That's Edwards. You ever bought an Edwards pie, Don? You've probably seen them. It's usually Marie Callender's or Edwards pies if you go to the grocery store. And I can't speak for Edwards or for Marie Callender's, but the Edwards pecan pie, it's like a custard pecan pie filling. And I'll tell everybody the best way to do this. You get it from the store, you put it right in your freezer, and you never thaw it out. All right. Every time you want a piece of pecan pie, you just take a knife and you cut out a piece of pie because it doesn't freeze rock solid, Don. It's perfect.
So it's a little bit like pecan pie ice cream.
Yeah, that's a good way to. It's amazing, and you get it right. I don't know how much it is, probably $7-8 for a pie. I urge you to do that, Don. Get an Edwards pecan pie from the grocery store and give me your thoughts, because you love those pecan tarts. I know we've talked about that.
I do. I absolutely do. Let me put in a plug for Village Inn. You're going to laugh, but the other day I got a piece of mail from Village Inn congratulating me on my 74th birthday, and inside the card was a gift card to Village Inn.
Okay.
$10 gift card. I'm thinking, I wonder if I could apply that toward a pecan pie. The answer is they were more than happy to give me a $10 credit on an $18 pecan pie. And you know what? I'll give them credit. It's a good pecan pie, and it cost me $8.48 with tax. That was a steal. I'm going to enjoy every slice.
Village Inn and Perkins do make really good pies. I will admit. I don't get pies much from Perkins. By the way, we don't have a Village Inn anymore. Our Village Inn is gone here in Ames, but we have a Perkins, and their pie, piece of pie is like $4.50 now for a little slice.
And that's why you should buy the entire pie.
I agree, 100%. And full disclosure, the company that I brought up earlier that I did not name, that had the pecan pie cheesecake flavor, I bought 4 pints of their ice cream earlier today because they had a party pint 4-pack deal for like $13 for 4 pints, different flavors. Anyways, let's get off this. Let's get off the subject because I'm getting hungry. Erica says, have you had the pie in a bag apple pie? That is so good. Pie in a bag. Where is this at, Erica? You'll have to tell us. But that sounds good. I love apple pie, Don. Apple pie with you don't like apple pie. I can already tell by your expression.
Well, let's not try to compare it to pecan because that's not fair. That's an unfair fight.
I agree. No, I agree with that 100%. But I'll listen. I've never really met a pie that I didn't like. Now I've never met a raisin pie. I don't think I would eat that because I don't
That's kind of putting that theory to the test. Is to talk about raisin pie.
Do you like raisin?
No.
No, I don't either.
Well, I'm fine to miss out on that.
BJ wants to go to Village Inn with you, Don, and have a cup of coffee with a slice of pie. That would be a fun evening.
Tell BJ I'd be happy to take him up on that. Okay. When can he make it to Iowa City?
All right, we got 2 more callers. We got Crazy Joe Davola and we got Billy Happel. Obviously, neither one of those 2 people are legit. They're both aliens.
Are we sure it's not Billy Happel?
It's not Billy Happel.
It might be
Crazy Joe Davola. If it's the actor that played Crazy Joe Davola, I don't know what his real name is, but Crazy Joe Davola is a fictional character from Seinfeld. Crazy Joe Davola, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. What an introduction. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it was legendary, wasn't it?
Your real alias is the Big Bad Bee, right?
Yeah, that's my alias.
All right.
That's welcome the alias. Thanks, guys. Well, just to let you know, here in Idaho, we don't have any snow either in North Idaho right now. So we have a snowless Christmas. So
I noticed that Boise had a clean field.
Well, we're up north. Boise's way down south.
Where are you in North Idaho?
Up just north of like Coeur d'Alene.
Okay, because I won't tell. I had family in Post Falls, so I've spent quite a bit of time in Coeur d'Alene way back when.
It was funny today. I went out real quick. This is hilarious. I went out for a walk real quick today. My wife was leaving. I came in. She goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "I saw the strangest thing. This guy, our neighbor, has all of this Christmas lights up, and he was mowing his lawn today, and it just looked really strange." So
that is the definition of psychosis, and there's plenty of people actually in our community. No, I'm serious. There's plenty of people in our community that mow their lawns. There's a guy that I know that mows his lawn, Don, whether it's grown or not, and he mows his lawn in mid-December. I hope you're not out mowing your lawn in the month of December. That is the definition of insanity.
I don't know, but it was interesting. I forgot it was Christmas, but anyway, hey, could you guys just maybe Don would know this answer? Kirk gave a news conference or his press conference last week, his last one, and could you help define this for me? He was asked how he felt where they were at in the portal. and he said he felt pretty good where they were at. Could you define what pretty good means just for everyone else? Like, what does that really mean? Because pretty good doesn't mean what we have now to me. That's my thinking. And I'm just curious, is that just football language that he has to say, or does he really believe that?
My guess is one reason he responded that way, he was commenting and thinking about those we might lose to the portal rather than those we might gain.
Oh, okay.
And for the record, let me just say that, look, you probably heard my video yesterday, sir. As it relates to portal, I'm disappointed and frustrated by the Bo Pribula stuff. They've swung and missed on Miller Moss. The other guys they've been connected to, Connor Wiegman was a guy that the name was out there. They've not added anybody. If they add Sam Phillips, it will really help because he's a good ad. But the fact that they were able to get Logan Jones and Ethan Herkett back, those are really big. I mean, like, let's not forget, if those guys were coming from another school, imagine a guy like Logan Jones was entered the portal from a like school, like Michigan State, or Ethan Herkett enters the portal from Wisconsin, and Iowa adds them, we'd be doing cartwheels.
You're exactly right, Cory. If was Logan first team or second team all conference? I know he was one of the others.
He was second team.
Second team.
No, he's not first team. Yeah.
But it's not easy to be second team all conference. Let's face it.
Not this
You gotta
conference.
be, you got to be one hell of a good player to do that. Logan Jones is.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're wrong, sir, but I'm just saying that I don't know that we can be too critical yet. If they don't add anything at quarterback / receiver, with the exception being Hank Brown, then criticism's fair. But I think getting those two guys back is huge. Now, next year, they're not going to have those options because the COVID years have completely ran their course. Now, maybe they'll have an exception with a couple of JUCO guys that will have extra years, and that adds a different element to this. But they've got to get down to 105. They're not going to have a lot of scholarships to hand out, so they need to be pointed because they haven't lost a ton of scholarship guys, and they're trying to get down to 105.
Well, I do hope, one thing I do hope that Kirk eventually hopefully has a little more nuanced approach to this is he gets off this, we're a developmental program all the time. That I think those days are done with the way that the NIL portal is. And it just seems that we lean on that so much that by the time we develop these guys, they're, that big jump, like you said. I think Calvin Bell, you'd mentioned, says between year 3 and 4, there's these jumps. And can we wait for year 3 and 4 for this sort of new style of collegiate football? Is this going to be
not with quarterbacks? Not with quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Not with quarterbacks. And I said that people were ripping me last night for saying I was being melodramatic. And look, the quarterback situation's different. One guy can play.
Right.
And if guys aren't playing by year 2, Don, they're gone. Like Marco Linez, I don't blame the young man. I got a lot of admiration for him and his family. Marco Linez has been here 2 years. He's gone. And now some people say, well, I wouldn't want him. He was a Brian Ferentz guy. Okay, fine. You want to go with that narrative, that's fine. But in general, if guys aren't playing, look at Bo Pribula. He stuck it out for 3 years at Penn State. But everybody knew he was gone. And he didn't even stick it out for the college football playoff because he wanted to make sure he found a new home.
Right.
Devin Brown's another example. You are not going to be able to develop quarterbacks. And if you develop quarterbacks, they're not going to end their careers with you unless you're developing them as they're on the field, as freshmen and sophomores. You see what I'm saying? Like Iowa's not going to be able to just wait until CJ Beathard's a senior. And I'm trying to think the good news is if you're looking at a positive, Jimmy Sullivan's coming in for bowl prep. That's what I said earlier. Like maybe that's an indicator that you can speed up his maturation.
Yeah.
He's not just another guy you bring in to fill a spot and then he's gone after a year.
Yeah. No, I get that. So, hopefully that changes. And I love it. Hey, I love Kirk puts guys in the NFL. That's great. But I I wouldn't mind not having any guys in the NFL and winning a lot of college games and competing for championships all the time. I think that developmental piece that we always talk about with the program, I just don't know if that's going to be the selling point now for a majority of these kids that just want to play. And so I think opening the net to a much more broad group of making the pool much larger, and rather than this narrow focus. So this Bo Pribula thing to me was, we kind of pinned our hopes on that guy, a lot of it. And I just wonder how much of a broad net do we really cast for a lot of these players? Do they have to fit in this role? And I go back to 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe when the whole thing happened with Doyle, and, the kids weren't even allowed to use social media at that time. Kirk didn't allow dreadlocks at that time, things like that, like just this narrow focus that we have, that you have to fit in this before we even approach you. And it has to be a two-way communication of, you have to like us, we have to like you. God, that just seems that's just a small window for me. And we're going to miss out on a lot of these guys, I think, that could really help the team if we're just going to kind of operate like operate like in the 80s. It just isn't going to work anymore. So I'm wondering if Kirk can really adapt to that. I hope he does, but these are just things that, curious about as we go on, because we're going to why have this one guy we pin our hopes on? Why not have 5 or 6 guys that we're really heavily invested in, and hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 of them. And I just feel like a lot of it is underwhelming in what we do get in the portal. But you're right, having those guys do come back, like Herkett, huge. Jones has really impressed me this year. Man, I wrote him off the first year, like, no way, this guy, he's not going to be no Linderbaum. But, man, he's really, really done well these past 2 years. So I'm excited for him as well. But anyway,
that's just what else he does for us. He's one of our best leaders.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think that is going to give a lot of security to the quarterback, whoever the quarterback is. It's really going to help out. So, I think he's a good calming presence for the team. So, anyway, you guys have a snowless Christmas. Are you guys snowless as well? You got no snow?
There's no snow on the ground here.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
There's a couple of piles. As I pulled in from Sioux Falls yesterday, there's still some piles from the snowplow here a few days ago, but I mean, small little piles that'll probably be melted by the time we hit tomorrow morning.
Wow. So it's a whole regional north.
I'm good for it.
Thing here. Yeah.
Totally down for it.
Okay. Well, you guys have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, guys.
Thank you, sir.
You're the same. Cory, I do have one other stat to bring up, because there's something to look for in the game. Looking at first quarter scoring, Missouri 85, opponents 44. That concerns me, because our history is that we start slow. So one thing to look for early on, let's hope we're not playing from behind after one quarter. If we're hanging in there for even or even ahead, that's a real plus, because Missouri has demonstrated that they're going to start faster than we typically do, and we can't have that. As you know, we're not very good playing from behind. That's not our strength.
All right, let's go to SB. It says, can't be a raisin pie offense and expect people to get excited about eating it. And BJ, I like this exercise. If there was a 12 pie bracket, which 4 get a bye week? I love it.
Well, the one seed happens to be Southern Pecan Pie.
Southern Pecan. All right, Southern Pecan Pie gets a 1 seed. I think Key Lime is absolutely a bye.
Good choice.
Can we agree on that, Don?
I'm going to go with, what do they call it? The silk chocolate, maybe? The chocolate cream pies. Those are good.
French silk gets a
there you go, French silk.
Pie. And then the third one, I tend to lean towards a good like apple crumb pie. But at the same time, you can't go wrong with a good pumpkin pie with Cool Whip. I really like a good supreme pie, Don. A lemon supreme pie.
I'm sorry. Pumpkin is maybe a 12 seed, I think.
They may not get in your bracket, Don. What about lemon supreme? I'm not a big meringue fan, but lemon supreme.
I do like lemon meringue. My mom used to bake a great lemon meringue pie.
Hard to make that meringue. That's a skill and art to be able to make the meringue.
You're right. Absolutely.
Can Lisa make the meringue?
I'm not sure that's her strength. We don't go that route typically.
You're more of a crust first offense.
Well, her skills are better suited to cookies
Okay.
and maybe to pecan bark, as we call it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of my other favorite pies. I mean, so many fruit pies are good with vanilla ice cream. You just cannot go wrong with French vanilla ice cream, cherry pie, wild berry pie, blueberry pie, apple pie, peach pie. It's all phenomenal.
I'm reading M. Finn's comment here. I put a pecan praline in the base of my pumpkin pie, and it shoots it to a 5 seed. That's another thing Lisa does well. Simply imagine this, and what do you call them? Caramels with pecans in the caramels, and those are delicious too. They'll melt in your mouth.
I was going to ask you earlier, are you more of a chocolate guy or a caramel guy?
Caramel.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm not a huge fan of chocolate.
How about Linda though? This is absolute. I'm sorry. My 4 seed is a rhubarb pie. It can either be a rhubarb, straight up rhubarb. It could be a strawberry rhubarb custard pie. Don, that's my 4 seed. Those are my 4 seeds. I'm going pecan pie. I'm going apple pie, the classic. I'm going key lime, and I am going with a rhubarb pie of choice.
That's a good final 4, no doubt about it. I, on the other hand, have to label rhubarb as, if I want to be kind, last one out.
Last one out.
Rhubarb is 13th.
Oh, have you had a good strawberry rhubarb pie, Don?
I guess not. If I did, it didn't make an impression on me. Maybe I simply haven't been exposed to a good strawberry rhubarb pie.
We had rhubarb out in the garden growing up. So we didn't really have a garden. We had rhubarb and chives. So I know everything you need to know about rhubarb and chives and in good dishes. So anyways, let's go to our final caller of the day. We've got Billy Happel here with us, Mr. Cory. And Cory, I don't want to be here until midnight. So
don't worry. We won't be. We'll be here.
Cory, let me hit you with this. I knew Billy Happel. You're not Billy Happel.
Billy,
like a presidential debate a little bit.
Billy Happel ran great routes, and he got open all the time.
Let me give you one Billy Happel story.
Okay.
Think about this. I go to scout Newton versus Cedar Rapids Wash in the fall. It is just dumping rain on the field. Billy Happel never dropped a ball the entire night, fielded punts flawlessly. I went back and I said, Coach, we need Billy Happel because he'll catch everything. And that's what he did. And he also ran precise routes. And he's a great young man. He's no longer quite so young, but now he's a great man. So let's hear it for Billy Happel, one of the best receivers that Iowa will ever have in terms of being able to run precise routes and catch everything.
And I equate him to like an Adam Thielen, who's now with Carolina, who Cooper DeJean talked about as one of the toughest covers out there. And the guy's not a speedster. He's adequate at best speed, but runs great routes and gets open and catches the ball.
Yep.
And so
real quick, BJ says whatever pie Lane Kiffin likes is a 13 seed and the first team out.
That's fair.
Anyways,
Lane Kiffin and his my feelings are exactly synonymous with Erica as far as these maddening posts by Lane Kiffin during the game when he was commenting on, oh, this is a great game or whatever. It's like, anyway. Oh, by the way, your best value.
I can't see it. Oh, well, I got a lot. I like Elijah Craig. It's not great. It's okay.
It's good value when you got to go.
Good value. Yeah, Elijah Craig is a good middle of the road. It's like a bullet, right?
I think it's a little smoother, but Woodford Reserve, they think they're so great, but they're no better than Elijah Craig. They're charging
more expensive. Yeah.
Oh, they hit you for an extra $10, and there's no difference. I mean, I argue with a buddy of mine, and he just opted out of meeting me for the bowl game. So I win. Elijah Craig wins. So moving on. And Cory,
Yes.
Your pie comments had me totally turned off, and then you hit me with the rhubarb pie. If I see you in Tennessee, I will
Okay.
buy you a piece of rhubarb pie and your favorite whiskey because
All right.
my grandmother made rhubarb pie, and anyway.
Corey, do
So
me a favor. If they have good pecan pie, maybe you could give one to Corey, and he can drop it off on the way home.
Don, no, Don, I was going to comment regarding you and your chocolate silk pie and your pecan pie. We're going to fight to the end for those last pieces because you're striking those are my favorites.
Don,
my
So
Don's not getting any pecan pie from me because Don, you have a very loving wife who's making apparently this to die for pecan bark. So
Right.
I don't feel sorry for you in the least. You're going to be watching that game on December 30th, gut full of Lisa Patterson sweets. So I do not feel sorry for you at all.
Incidentally, let me endorse another pecan pie I am familiar with, and they're not an advertiser for you, Corey, but I still want to put in a plug. If you want a great pecan pie, Oxyoke Inn in Amana has
Okay.
a great pie.
All right.
It's
Good to know.
the best I've tasted here in the state of Iowa.
Wow. Very good to know. Keep that in mind.
we used to do a lot of family gatherings there. Fantastic site. So
It is.
I got so many thoughts and I can't
Limit
possibly.
it to 6, would you?
Oh my goodness. So I want to start with controversy just because I like a little bit of uneasiness. I think to create an awkward room gets people's attention. So here we go. Don, I'm going to hold you accountable here. The best Iowa quarterback as far as yardage was Chuck Hartley, not Chuck Long, which is mind blowing. And a friend of a friend, anyway, friend of ours is dating. I think it would be his nephew. Anyway, but so I've been in recent conversations regarding Chuck Hartley.
Chuck Hartley
But-
was a two-time All Big Ten quarterback. He was a good one.
Yeah. Now, why am I looking at, and this is, I think it's usatoday.com. Why am I looking at this record? Iowa record in, was it 88? 1988, 6-4-3, 3 ties? There's no way.
And when you know it, I got ties for Christmas that year too.
You got to be kidding me, Don. We had 3 ties in 1988.
Yeah,
That is insane.
it wasn't any fun. It's kind of like kissing your sister, you know.
You know, these people complain about Kirk Ferentz in close games. My God. 6-4-3, 3 ties. Has any other school had 3 or more ties in the history of college football? Why have we not heard about this season from you?
Well, I don't really remember it fondly because ties aren't much fun. And frankly, I believe one of those ties. No, that's a different year. Here's a famous tie that I remember very well. How about the Holiday Bowl against BYU and Heisman Trophy winner
Ty Detmer.
Ty Detmer? That was a tie, and I think that's what a tragedy. All these people paid all this money to go to San Diego for a bowl game, and at the end of the night, we say, "Okay, let's just call it a tie and go home." That's tragic because there wasn't a single person on either bench and a single person in the stadium that didn't want to have overtime to decide that game, and we weren't able to do it. Here's a great trivia question. Who caught Ty Detmer's last college pass? And even a BYU fan will think about a BYU receiver. Not true. It was a quarterback from Iowa. And now I'm sitting there trying to think of that quarterback. He was from Chicagoland, but I can't think of his name. That's horrible.
Yeah, I know the answer to this, but I don't know it at the top of my head. Yeah.
It was an Iowa DB.
When you said that, I knew that it was a Hawkeye player, but I didn't
Yeah.
figure out who it was.
Try that on your BYU friends.
Wow. Yeah.
Who caught
Wow.
his last pass? A guy from Iowa did. And incidentally,
Wow.
we had a chance to win the game and missed a field goal toward the end. BYU, to their credit, drove down the field and got intercepted down in the red zone.
Real quick, Cory, just so you're aware, because I know you're wondering, the Mavs just beat the Trailblazers 132-108.
But what did your guy do for production? Did he?
Luka had actually Luka didn't play great. He was 1 of 7 from 3, but had 27 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. But just 19 field goal tries, 27 points coming off injury, and Dallas wins going away.
Well, to quote Angel Reese, Luca's got a special whistle. He gets a special whistle, so he's okay. So there's been a lot of social media attack on Kirk Ferentz that we lost Bo Pribula because of the stubbornness of Kirk Ferentz and blah 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 blah. Okay, was Iowa able to put up 1.5 million? Okay, I don't think we did.
Well,
Okay.
first of all, apparently it was not a money issue because that's the word from the collective. So
Yeah,
that's the word from the collective. I'm not telling you believe that or not believe it, but I'm just saying that the powers that be are saying that it was not a money issue.
Okay, so I think we need to regroup and we need to be honest with ourselves at the University of Iowa. And much like Tom Brands, for example, we're not going to worry about everybody else. Let's worry about us. We're going to do what we do. Okay. What do we do? And what do we do well? If you look back in the history of the University of Iowa, okay, let's just go in recent years. What was our bread and butter this year? Caleb Johnson. Okay. Previous years, actually, Nico Ragaini got open on some key routes, on some big plays, and it was Spencer Petras who was known to overthrow the long, deep pass, but the mid-length throws, he was fairly accurate. Okay, so that was effective. Okay, moving previous to that, you had a guy named Akram Wadley. We took out. I'm sorry, I jumped. We had two big tight ends that annihilated Ohio State. And we had Nate Stanley as a quarterback. Okay. Moving beyond that, Michigan, when we took them down, it was the Akram Wadley show. Okay. Prior to that, we beat LSU. Nick Saban coached LSU. And that was a no-name wide receiver. And you had Drew Tate as a quarterback who scrambled and was like 5'9". Okay. So my point is that all of these people that took down these big teams, were any of them 5-star superstars out of high school? They were not. Show me one of these guys. Chuck Long, who sat back there like a statue, but his offensive line protected him so well. And he just sliced defenses apart. He cut them to pieces, whether it was Quinn Early, Billy Happel, Robert Smith, Scott Halverson. It didn't matter. Jonathan Hayes was way before. Okay, I'm sorry. But
how about Ronnie Harmon coming out of the backfield?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We won't talk about the Rose Bowl game, but what a special player he was. But my point is, was Ronnie Harmon a highly regarded high school athlete? What was his?
I don't know that they had stars back in that day, but he was heavily recruited.
Okay, and I mean,
money credit for being able to get him off the East Coast.
Yeah, and I think back in the Hayden Fry days, we had that moxie on the recruiting trail. We did have that.
We had special ties to Texas and special ties to the East Coast.
Yes. So, but I would say, mostly in the Kirk Ferentz era, but somewhat in the Hayden Fry era, we've, if we're honest with ourselves, we've done some pretty big things with players that were not elite coming out of high school.
Correct.
We win with heart, and the sum of our team is greater than the individual parts. We group together and we form a mass that's unstoppable together versus these disjointed prima donnas that we compete against. And so, I know we all want to go for the 5-star, but if you
Well,
get a
first of all,
prima donna that's a cancer and it's all about me, 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 you don't have a team with guys like that.
let's be very
And
clear, though, that during the Kirk Ferentz era, Corey, there have been plenty of offenses that have been very stoppable.
in
In fact,
recent
most
years,
have been very stoppable. So I don't
in
know
re-
that calling like Bo Prabula or Miller Moss. I don't know that you can. I have concerns with going after kids that are, from blue bloods that lost their starting jobs or that were buried. Concerns are different than assumptions that they're prima donnas.
no. And I'm not accusing Bo Pribula of being a prima donna. But what
First of all,
I'm
is
saying,
it Pribula or Prabula? Because I've been saying Prabula.
okay,
Pavila, I think.
I don't
okay.
know. Is it Petrus or Petrus? I like saying Petrus better. But go ahead, Corey. Is there something else you?
So I guess what I'm saying is, rather than copy what everybody else is doing,
Yep.
maybe Iowa needs to be true to themselves and think inwardly about what have we been good at. I mean, look at Wisconsin, for example. Wisconsin is now trying to be, uh, who are they trying to be? They're trying to be some aerial assault, air raid. I don't know. They're not being true to who they are, and they're failing. Okay. Nebraska has not succeeded. They're trying to be something they're not, in my opinion. I think that you have an identity as a football team, and I think you have a history, and you also have a culture within your homegrown state of hardworking um, people that are maybe under celebrated, don't need the limelight, but they're willing to put in the work. And I think that's the character of Iowa. And I think that we need to uh, kind of accept and receive that and welcome that culture. And if, I mean, you look at, I think back to, what was it, 2007 Penn State night game coming into Kinnick, Gang Green, Sean Green. We just ran them over. I felt sorry for them by the end of that game. And so, do we need to copycat everybody else? Do we need to throw $12.5 million at a quarterback or $1.5 million at a quarterback? Not necessarily. There's lots of ways to win. If you look back though, what have we almost always had? Whether it was Akram Wadley in the big Michigan game, whether it was Amir Smith Marset in the Holiday Bowl. Shout out to Erica. I know that's one of Erica's favorite games was the Holiday Bowl. That was Amir Smith Marset. Okay. To quote our guy, watch out, he can fly. Amir Smith Marset, touchdown Hawkeyes. Okay. So anyway, but my point is, Iowa has been okay, but we do need one separator. We need one player that is a mismatch. And if we can create that mismatch, we can get things done. What's the mismatch? Well, back when Don was coaching, you had Quinn Early, Robert Smith. Okay. You also had the reliable Billy Happel, Scott Helverson, that got open. They weren't speedsters, but they got open and they caught the ball.
Let's not forget Jonathan Hayes and Marv Cook to name two.
Yes, sir. Catching that ball at Ohio State, falling across the plane, and that was too close for comfort. But he did cross the plane, and I will still argue with my neighbor, who's a Buckeye fan next door, about that one. But
real quick, Cory, just so you're Packers just closed out the Saints 34-0, and
Wow.
Can I go to bed now, or are you still you're still going?
I'm still going.
You can set your alarm.
Got it.
You see the Detroit Lions logo? Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
Do you know who's got?
Man, I'm just letting you know. It's just the latest. What happened?
Do you know the second highest accumulation of yardage by a tight end in the NFL in their first 2 years? Who is that?
Sam Laporta.
Yes, sir. Second to Rob Gronkowski. So, Sam, if you're ready, you may not be, but you better get prepared because you will be the next USAA. You're going to be the spokesperson. And let me tell you that I bank at Genesis Credit Union, and Sam Laporta is posted at every location. He's the figurehead now for Genesis Credit Union, where I bank. And so, Sam, we love you.
Cory, I know for a fact Sam Laporta is a great young man, too.
And let me just say, I'm going to cut you off now because I am tired. I've been on here 2.5 hours, Cory.
We're not at the 4 hour in.
I love you. I let you. Listen. I let you run. You run the course. You run the cross. Everybody else is running track. You're running cross country. But I have to draw the line somewhere. So this is
that's right too, Cory. You ran the anchor leg. You were the last leg of the relay.
Yes, and Cory, listen, yes. I will be there with my two boys in Nashville, and I want to buy you your favorite. Yeah, we're down there in Tennessee, so hopefully they got some good home cooking. I need to find you. It's sadly post game is going to be tough.
Chris Stapleton has a pretty good song called Tennessee Whiskey. So
yes, sir. Anyway, Hawkeye Nation, don't lose faith, and don't give up on Kirk Ferentz. He wants to win just as bad as anybody. He's the son of Hayden Fry. He is grown and raised from the roots that Hayden Fry put in place. And let's stick together, people. Come on. Hayden Fry, Don Patterson, you can list them all off. It's Alvarez, Anyway.
Okay, Cory.
Stop hating on each other and stop attacking our own. We're all on the same field here. And
I love this comment from DJ. If I meet Cory, I'm gonna miss the game. If I meet Cory in Nashville, I'm gonna miss the game. I love it.
Listen,
anyway,
I just took that same abuse last night at a Christmas party. So hey, let me end with this. Let me end with this.
Yep.
Don, I love you. Cory, I love you. Yep. Erica, Lemansky, Doug, OS for Hawks, all you guys. Tony, yes. Love you guys. Listen, you guys take me out of this lonely place in Michigan and you move me back to Iowa and you bring me back, and I love it. And I just love the energy of all the comments, all the people on here. And I literally fight online with some of your listeners, and I know they're watching right now. And listen, you know what I love is I love the passion. And everybody wants Iowa to knock it out of the park. Okay. And the only thing I'll say is don't copy everybody else. Look at Nebraska. They tried to copy people. Look at Wisconsin. They tried to copy people. They didn't stay true to who they were, and they're failing as a result. Stay true to who you are and believe in yourself, Hawkeye Nation, because we got something special here. All right? And go Hawks. And Merry Christmas to each and every one. Where's my finger? Merry Christmas to each and every one of you guys. We got the greatest. We got the greatest logo, and we got the greatest Hawkeye Nation. No one can match us. All right, so let's stop fighting. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I love you all.
Cory, we'll talk to you soon.
Go Hawks.
God bless, Cory.
Absolutely. Lemansky, appreciate the super chat, Lemansky. Well-rounded podcast. Cookies to pie to Mavericks to impersonation of Billy Happel. Good stuff. All right. And Erica wants well, first of all, before we get to Erica, Lemansky says, I make him want to have another glass of Southern Comfort. So let's, or no, I'm sorry. He's talking to the other Cory. Lemansky says the other Cory makes him want to have another glass of Southern Comfort. So let's end this thing before Lemansky does that. Erica, need a Hayden Fry story, please. Did he like pie? Go Hawks. Don, do you know?
Eric, I am sorry. I'm without a story right now, but I'll make a promise to you. After the Missouri game, I'll have a story.
Okay, so he's promising a Music City Bowl story. Folks, it's been a fun 2.5 hours. Don, I didn't think we'd go this long, but always enjoy this because sooner than you think, we're going to be done. The season's going to be over, and we'll be heading into another long off season. So
let's enjoy what we have left.
Let's enjoy what we have left. Of course, the Hawkeyes will be taking the field down in Nashville to take on the Missouri Tigers. It'll be a battle between the team that stole Prabula. That's the theme right now. But anyways, Hawkeyes and the Tigers, Monday, the 30th of December at 1:30 p.m. on Central Time on ESPN. We'll be recapping the game live for you at some point that day. I know there's a basketball game as well, but we'll figure all that out. And Don, it's always been fun to do this with you, and enjoy the next week. Enjoy your wife's lovely pecan tarts or pecan bark, whatever that is. And I'm sure it's delicious. Folks, I'll be with you throughout the week. We'll be posting videos as we always do. There's no holiday break here on the channel. So be sure you stick around. Hit the like button on this video. Share the show on social media. If you're interested in sponsorship, the email's been scrolling for the last hour or whatever that is, right at the bottom of your screen. And folks, please subscribe. We're about 100 subscribers away from hitting the 10,000 mark. It would be a great way to celebrate next Monday following a Hawkeye win in Nashville. Don, thank you again, and we'll talk to you a week from today.
Always fun, Cory. I look forward to it.
Folks, for Coach Don Patterson, I'm Cory Brada. This platform is called From the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll talk to you next time.